Okay. Good morning. First, I'd like to apologize for our late start this morning due to technical difficulties. During the declared emergency, Committee of Adjustment virtual public hearings are being conducted by electronic means through WebEx, an online digital platform, and streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. These measures are necessary to comply with physical distancing requirements and in-person attendance limitations. This will be a virtual public hearing, and participants who have registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using WebEx, an online event that is being moderated by city staff. Anyone wishing to view the hearing may do so by watching on YouTube. Participants who have registered in advance will be connecting either by their computer, a telephone, or a phone or tablet app. All participants will automatically be muted on entry, and when your item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. Only the committee members will be participating by video. Committee panel members participating today are Donald Taylor, Danny Bellissimo, Laura Alderson, and Neil Palmer. I am Michael Clark, and I'm your panel chair. We also, all registered participants will be participating by audio only. We also ask that you mute your devices until you are called on to speak. Land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In accordance with sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning bylaws that apply to the property, permissions to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consents to sever properties to create new lots. Anyone in attendance today who wants to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you include your name, address, and email address, because the Committee of Adjustment, in the event of an appeal, TLAB will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee, decisions may be appealed to the Toronto Local Appeal Body, TLAB, or in some limited circumstances, to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. The hearing procedure will be as follows. I'll call each item in the order listed in the agenda. In making your submissions where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant may proceed with their presentation if desired. When the committee does not require presentation, applicants are to advise the chair should they wish to address the committee. The committee may ask questions of the applicant or agent, or take the matter into the committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee, and there's an electronic clock that will be monitored, and staff will indicate when you're reaching the 5-minute mark. When addressing the committee, please start off by clearly stating your name and your address, and please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent will proceed first and will make their presentation to the committee of the application. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals to the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if it's being substantially revised in order to ensure that the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application have been informed of the changes. Then individuals either in support or opposed to the application or with concerns will be invited to speak. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they finish their presentation, and when all speakers have finished, the applicant or agent is given an opportunity to rebut only those issues and answer those questions that were raised by the speakers. That will then mark the end of the discussion, and the matter is then taken into the committee for a decision. We have some housekeeping matters to take care of. Firstly, the adoption of the minutes of the February 23rd hearing. Panel members, can I have a motion to approve those minutes? Mr. Taylor, thank you. Second by Ms. Alderson, thank you. All in favor? The minutes are approved. Are there any declarations of interest of panel or staff for the items in the morning agenda? Mr. Palmer?
Item number 2.
Yep. Okay, I believe you have to state the nature of your conflict.
I have a personal relationship with one of the parties involved.
Okay. So you'll recuse yourself and leave your workstation when we hear that application. Okay, any others? Okay, Madam Secretary Treasurer, are there any files to be closed today?
None today.
Okay, and I believe we have one deferral that at least we're aware of in the morning agenda, which is item number 6.
Yes.
Perhaps we'll call that item first. 22 Albright. And we do have 2 speakers. Have to squint, unfortunately, I'm to my attendance list here. I believe we have 2 speakers, Richard DeBose from Gaspar Design Group, as well as the neighbor from 18 Albright on the line to deal with this matter. So let's hear from the agent.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Richard Delbush, and I'm from Gaspar Design Group. I'm here on behalf of the owners of 22 Albright Avenue. We're requesting to have this application deferred just to have us a little bit more time to deal with the zoning examiner in regards to this. We've been going back and forth trying to find some common ground. We are almost there. We have reduced it, as you can see, from our previous variances, but we're still trying to find some common ground.
Okay, thank you. I see we do have a revised notice that you have eliminated 1 variance from reduced 2 others, and now have 7. But if you want more time, that obviously is better to come to some agreement. So let's hear if any questions, panel members, for Mr. DeBose. And if not, which is when we hear just touch base with the neighbors at 18 Albright who have registered, I guess, to deal with this matter on the merits, to let them know that it's being deferred. So it's either Mr. Santiago or Ms. Rodriguez.
Yeah, no issues here.
Okay, so I assume you're Mr. Rodriguez?
This is Mr. Santiago Garcia.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so you'll be re-notified when this matter is brought back on a further agenda. In the meantime, if you have any concerns, perhaps discuss with your neighbor. Okay, committee members, then a motion to defer this matter.
Danny Bennett, someone moves.
Thank you, Danny.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Alderson. All in favor? Okay, the matter is deferred.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so in that case, we can go back to the top of the agenda and start hearing applications. Item number 1 is 224 Beta Street. It's an application to construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage, a new swimming pool, a pool house, and a shed, and the existing detached garage will be demolished. We have 8 variances. We have transportation conditions of approval. We have an applicant's presentation, an arborist report, 2 site-specific zoning bylaws, 12 letters of support. Planning is recommending refusal. And the speaker is Franco Romano. On this application, we only have the 1 speaker. Welcome, Mr. Romano.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Good morning. I see that you have a hat trick today. I think you have 3 applications with us. So
I have a hat trick and I have the door prize, I think. Just rocking and rolling today.
Okay, sir. So I take so there is no one else in the line. You do have a negative planning report. Perhaps staff can get your presentation up on the board, so we don't have to look at ourselves. And the floor is yours. And I take it staff is going to be keeping track of the time today. I see we have a picture of the clock in the distance.
Yes, I do. I do wish to refer to my presentation material, and I'm happy to get started.
Yeah, staff, if we can get that up on the board, please.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, we're seeing that it's up. Are you able to see it?
Nope. We cannot. I guess we can all follow along on our own.
Yeah, Franco, I think it's showing up on the YouTube, it's showing up on the YouTube, but not, I guess, for people on WebEx, so if you can just, I guess, prompt us when to switch the slide. I know it's not ideal, but I think it's the only workaround we can think of right now.
Well, Barb has got it up. Thank you, Barb.
Oh, okay, there we go. And
Appreciate it. So this property is located on the west side of Beta Street. It's a key lot. So the south side of the property sides onto the rear yards of the Palermo properties. You'll see that it currently is occupied by a detached dwelling and a detached garage. The existing lot coverage is about 34%. The proposed lot coverage is 40%. And that 40% includes the house at 32.9% and the pool shed, the pool house and the shed in the rear yard, which brings it up to the 40%. So you may be aware that there's a garden suite bylaw that council has passed. The garden suite bylaw would allow a structure that is larger than that pool house and shed and would not count towards lot coverage. So what we see in the neighborhood is that 40% of properties have, 29% of properties that have received Committee of Adjustment approval exceed 40% lot coverage. And most of those are just for the dwelling itself. On Beta Street, where there's 14 Committee of Adjustment applications, 30% of the properties exceed 40% lot coverage. And again, most of those are just for the dwelling itself. So the proposed lot coverage is marginally different from what is there today and has no adverse impact and is in keeping with the neighborhood and the street or the immediate context. You'll see that neighboring dwellings, even the neighboring dwelling in 226 is taller in height. It actually has a 77 centimeter difference in roof height elevation. And you'll see the side wall in that photograph that I have in the middle left. You'll see the side wall of that dwelling next door, 226, is taller than the wall height that's being proposed for the subject site. And there is no wall height variance on that side of the proposal. The wall height variance is only on the south side. In terms of gross floor area, the proposal at 0.72 includes part of the basement. I'm not going to go there, but slide 3 shows various iterations. The Amati family have gone through this since 2020. They've gone through 2 architects, and I got involved in December of 2021. So there have been a number of submissions, and you'll see that the numbers differ from the zone examination, but the dwelling itself at 2 stories has a floor space index of 0.64. How that compares with the neighborhood, 64% of properties on the street where the Committee of Adjustment application has been made exceed 0.7. And in the neighborhood, 31% exceed 0.7. So the proposal is in no way an overdevelopment in terms of lot coverage, floor space index. The north side yard setback is 0.9 meters and 1.5 meters, and that neighbor at 226 is in support. On slide 2, thank you kindly, this shows the immediate context, which is representative of the redevelopment that's been occurring in the neighborhood. The proposal respects and reinforces this context as well as the neighborhood context. So there's nothing that's being proposed here that is out of character. In fact, it respects and reinforces what's occurring both within the immediate context and within the neighborhood context. And as you pointed out, Mr. Chairman, 12 neighbors, including all abutting to the rear and across the street, support this proposal. So I would submit that the application meets all 4 tests for a minor variance. There's no adverse impact. Happy to accept the Transportation Department comments. That can be accommodated, no problem. And there's no forestry issues. So subject to any questions, sir, it's my presentation.
okay, thank you, Mr. Romano. Does anyone have any questions?
Danny Bellissimo has a question. You had mentioned that the basement is included in the calculations. What percentage of the basement is included, and is that because of the location of the established grade relative to the first floor?
It's through you, Mr. Chairman. It's only part of the basement.
Yes.
And so I believe it is So let me do the math. It's about 40 square meters of the basement is included. So that is 0.08 FSI.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any further questions?
I have a question. So you did touch on the height of number 226, which appears to be higher. The height across the street in the two soldier homes. Do you happen to know what the height of those two structures are?
Across the street.
Directly across the street, there are two soldier homes that are fairly, well, they're new. It's new infill, and they're fairly high. And I'm just wondering what the height is in terms of, relatively speaking, in terms of this project.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chairman, the two existing ones are 8.85 and 8.6 meters in height to the midpoint. And the two that are not yet constructed but are shown on the second slide next door at 223, so they're not yet constructed. Those are at 9.63 meters with a flat roof.
Okay.
So they were all taller.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, or is someone ready for a motion? Mr. Taylor?
Mr. Chair, I find the proposal compatible in the neighborhood and immediate context. I find the four tests under the Planning Act are met. I note the considerable support for the project from people in the neighborhood. And I move approval subject to the transportation services conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Do I have a seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion?
I'm
Ms.
happy to
Alderson?
second that motion, yes.
Thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Roman. We'll see you later on.
Thank you kindly, appreciate it.
Okay. Next application is item number 2, 70 West Rose Avenue. It's an application for a new detached dwelling with a detached garage. There appears to be only one variance, being the FSI from 0.56, whereas 0.5 is permitted. We have a cover letter, a letter of introduction to the neighbors, actually, and we have opposition from 68 West Rose. Neil Palmer has left as he has declared a conflict on this application, and Urban Forestry is requesting condition number 3. We do have speakers in addition to the agent. The agent is David Eagleman, and then we have speakers from 42 Highgate and 68 West Rose.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. The speaker from 42 Highgate advised that she will only be listening. She won't be speaking. So the only other speaker is from 68 West Rose.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I guess so we'll go to Mr. Eagleman. Perhaps you can get his cover letter up on the board. Just on each application to get something up on the board is if it's easy to do so. I don't know if we're having issues today that it had to go through some circumvented way of getting presentations and materials on the board. So
sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. The materials are going to be posted on YouTube. Like for the YouTube stream for the public. I'm not sure if you also wanted it on the WebEx meeting or not, but the public YouTube.
Yes, certainly when people are making presentations, they like having there, and it's nice for us to be able to see and follow along, even though we have our own copies. But in this case, it's just a letter. There's no photos. There's no diagrams or charts. This is a general comment. Okay, Mr. Eagleman.
Yes, good morning,
And
Mr.
we'll hear
Chair.
from the neighbor. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and fellow committee members. So I'll just provide a brief presentation. I would like to note that, I've reviewed Urban Forestry memorandum issued for this hearing date, and we are acceptable to the recommended standard for forestry condition number 3. In regards to the proposal, the single variance that is in front of you today is entirely due to the proposed detached garage. The new single detached dwelling on the subject property is currently under construction with the benefit of a building permit issued by the city. Excluding the proposed detached garage, the new dwelling is compliant with the maximum permitted GFA. Moreover, the additional GFA will result in only 19.97 square meters of GFA over what is permitted as of right, and the proposed detached garage will be a single car garage that is 1 story in height. The proposed detached garage is also compliant with the maximum height and required setbacks for an accessory structure, and the subject property is compliant with all landscaping requirements. Detached garages in the rear yard are a common and prevalent characteristic in this neighborhood, and there will be little to no impacts as a result of the detached garage, especially considering that the subject property backs onto a hydro corridor. Based on the provided justification, I'm of the opinion that this proposal fits in with both the existing and planned context for the neighborhood, is consistent with the existing character and redevelopment trends along West Rose Avenue and the broader neighborhood context. And for these reasons, I believe this application represents good planning and meets the 4 tests under Section 45(1) of the Planning Act. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Any questions for Mr. Igman? On this
Danny Bellissimo has a question. You said earlier that the reason you're here is because of the garage, but yet the 0.5 and the 0.56 difference, that has to do with the house. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the GFA that is being proposed is a combination of both the house and the detached garage. However, the house is being constructed in compliance with all bylaw regulations and is the reason why a building permit has been issued for the house. So the detached garage has now brought over the GFA to 0.56.
Okay, so basically it's the garage that's increasing the gross floor area. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you were 20 square meters less on everything together, you wouldn't be here. Like, you actually designed the new house without any other variances for, you know, height, length, depth, front yard, side yards. So this is the only variance you have, and without, and like you actually have the building permit because it's only triggered because of the garage.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct.
So I don't know if we're going to hear from the neighbors that it's not the actual 20 square meters, but it's something to do with the location or something to do with the garage. Let's hear from the neighbor then, unless anyone else has any questions at this time for Mr. Eagleman. Let's hear from the neighbor, and you'll certainly have a chance to respond to that. But we do note that you're only 20 square meters over on this entire redevelopment, including a new dwelling. Okay, so the perhaps we can get the next speaker's letter up on the board as he makes his presentation. Okay, it's I guess it's Mr. It's quite long. John Taylor from 68. And there's a letter and a drawing attached. And photos. Do we have the neighbor on the line?
Yep, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, we do. I was trying something else on the WebEx, but I guess it's not working, so.
Okay. If not, we can, oh, there it is. Otherwise, we could follow along on our own copies, but as the neighbor makes his presentation, I assume he's going to want to refer to his presentation materials. Okay. Is Mr. Taylor on the line? John Taylor, that is. We have our own Mr. Taylor. Paul, Adam?
Yep, sorry, just give me 1 second. I have to join back in.
Okay. I just want to make sure we didn't lose you.
Okay, so John Taylor should be unmuted now. John, sorry, you can go ahead.
Hello, good morning. Can people hear me?
Yes.
Thank you.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is John Taylor. I live at 68 West Rose Avenue, immediately adjacent to this application. My main concern is with the prematurity of the application. In reviewing the plans on file with the committee that were part of the submission to the city for zoning review, the plans circulated last week to the neighbors by the architect for the applicant, and the photos of what has been constructed since. There's a clear discrepancy between what was submitted to the city for zoning review in the summer and what has been built by the applicant since early November. This was confirmed in my discussions with the architect, who acknowledged that while he had updated the site plan in terms of location and extent of the driveway and front yard walkway based on what he had discussed with the applicant, he was not aware of what had been constructed in the rear yard. From my marked up extracts of the site plan on file with the committee, and you see page 5 there of my submission, and the photos of the rear yard in pages 6 and 7, the extent of the rear yard walkway that currently exists is markedly different from the site plan used by the city to determine zoning compliance and generated the variance before you today. 3 key areas. Area 1, see on the diagram there, the area between the basement walkout, the driveway, the patio stairs, and where the walkway is shown on the plans is almost entirely covered by the walkway as constructed, whereas the site plan shows no walkway there at all. Area 2, the walkway is constructed clearly extends further than the front edge of the garage pad, extends towards the rear lot line by at least the width of the walkway shown on the plan, whereas the submitted site plan only shows the walkway extending toward the rear lot line no further than the front edge of the garage pad. In Area 3, the walkway as constructed clearly wraps entirely around the patio stairs to approximately the same width on all sides, whereas no walkway is shown at all on the plan to the right of the patio stairs. Someone could just move to the next page. Yeah, so area 1, 2, and 3 are shown there that are clearly different than what has been submitted as part of the site plan back in summer for zoning compliance. The site plans used by the city to determine any necessary variances show a rear yard soft landscaping percentage of 56.79%, which is above and compliant with the minimum 50% threshold required by the zoning bylaw. However, using the scale provided on the site plan provided by the applicant, would estimate the additional hard surfacing and walkways of areas 1, 2, and 3 beyond what was shown to the city for zoning review. There's potentially an additional 10.93 square meters of hard surfacing not accounted for. This would potentially result in a rear yard with only 47.6 soft landscaping below the minimum 50% threshold required by the bylaw. Despite these rough calculations, at the very least, they bring into question the need for additional variances required for this proposal to comply with the bylaw. As noted in a number of other applications before you today, namely 22 Albright and 31 2nd Street, planning staff have requested deferral recommendations, quote, in order for the applicant to submit all required material, plans, and or information as it relates to the missing, incomplete, or unclear minor variances, zoning reviews, or waivers. As I've shown in the marked up site plan and photos in my submission, there's at least one missing, incomplete, or unclear minor variance in respect of rear yard soft landscaping. The zoning review completed by city staff to determine the one variance before you today was done with a site plan that is no longer accurate in respect of what has since been built and therefore brings into question the likely need for additional variances. Even if the committee wishes to focus only on the variance for floor space index before today, it still must be considered premature. How can this variance meet the general intent and purpose of the official plan or the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw if it is patently unclear if other variances are required to ensure this proposed new home build complies with the zoning bylaw? How can this variance be seen as desirable and appropriate for neighborhood when what has been constructed so far clearly does not conform with what the city reviewed for zoning compliance in the summer and generated that variance before you? For these reasons, I respectfully ask the committee to defer the application in the same manner as planning staff has requested for 22 Albright and 31 2nd Street, so that the city can be in receipt of a full and accurate set of site plans that reflect what has been constructed on the property, so that a proper updated zoning compliance review can be undertaken to ensure that there are no missing, incomplete, or unclear minor variances or zoning reviews. Thank you for your time and your consideration of my concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Before I go back to see if anyone else has any questions and then having the agent respond to your concerns, so do you have no issues with the 20 square meters? If he's missing a variance, that's at his peril, and he will have to come back and pay another application fee if there is another variance for hard landscaping or soft landscaping or anything else, for that matter, that you suspect may have been done incorrectly. Other in addition to that, which you allude to, with no indication of what that could be. If I was a neighbor next door and someone built a house with only one variance of 20 square meters, I'd be jumping up and down for joy from what other people sometimes have put placed next to them. In any event, that's my comment. We'll see if committee members have any other questions for you. And then we'll go back to Mr. Engelman. Any questions for Mr. Taylor? No? Okay, so Mr. Engelman, if you could please respond to the neighbors' concerns.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, as you have stated, it would be at our peril if we were missing any variances, and we do have the benefit of a zoning review that was conducted by city staff. So we rely on city staff to correctly identify the variances, and they have done so. All the work on the subject property that has been completed and is currently being completed is being done in compliance with the bylaw, with the exception of the detached garage that we are at the committee here today for. And through you, Mr. Chair, I believe the application represents good planning, and there are a number of detached garages in the area. This is in keeping with the neighborhood, and those are my submissions.
Okay, thank you, sir. And you're okay with urban forestry condition number 3? You don't have any concerns with that being imposed?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, we are acceptable to that condition.
Okay, thank you. Panel members, any questions for Mr. Engelman, or for that matter, Mr. Taylor at this juncture? Or is someone ready to make a motion?
Danny Belismo has a quick question for the applicant. In your submission to zoning, did you submit soft landscaping calculation in total for the site? Because I don't see any calculations here. Did you submit something to zoning review?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there are soft landscaping calculations, both for the front yard and rear yard on the site plan that was submitted to the Committee of Adjustment. And I will note that, as I mentioned, a building permit has been issued for this, the new detached dwelling. So there are, a number of inspections as a result of the building permit process. So if there were any additional issues associated with the variances required, that would be flagged by city staff.
So just putting that aside, because that's not really what happens, but I just wanted to know if you had submitted zoning calculations for soft landscaping, and you're saying you did. So zoning review did have your calculations, correct?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair.
That's all
Yes.
I wanted to know. Thank you.
Yeah, and like I said, if there's something wrong and he's over, the neighbor will complain, because, obviously if everything's based on complaint, because no one comes in the unit if you build it 4 meters too high, unless there's a complaint and it's caught by the examiner. So I think we can rest assured that if it is, that it will be caught, and they'll just have to rip out some of the hard landscaping, probably, rather than come back in any event, or come back for another variance. Having said that, if no one has any other questions, is someone prepared to weigh in with a motion on this application? Mr. Taylor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We are restricted in our rules here to deal with the variances that are requested. And in this case, it's a pretty straightforward, very minor FSI increase. I'm going to move approval. I believe the variance meets the 4 tests under the Planning Act. My motion would be subject to urban forestry condition number 3. And if I may, I would just suggest that Mr. Taylor wishes to pursue the landscaping issue. He should deal directly with city staff on that to, attempt to potentially redress the any issue with respect to landscaping. So that's my motion.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Danny Bellissimo seconds the motion.
Okay, all in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you, applicant. Thank you, Mr. Taylor, and to the homeowners, welcome to the neighborhood. Okay,
Thank you, Mr.
item
Chair.
number three. Item number 3 is 78 Celestine Drive. On that application, we actually have and many applications today, which is a good thing, revised revision page or agenda page, revised notice highlighted to show the changes. In this case, we have one of those. There were 4 variances, there are now 3, and 2 of those have been revised as well. We have revised plans, a revised waiver. We have an applicant's revision email explaining that, as well as an arborist report. And we have urban forestry conditions 1 and 2. We have only one speaker, Richard Dobrose, who we spoke from earlier this morning on another application. That's the only speaker on this application. And again, it is subject to urban forestry conditions 1 and 2. And this is for a detached dwelling with an attached garage. I don't think I mentioned that. So we do have now 3 variances, 1 having been eliminated. Welcome, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee again. My name is Richard Dolbosch, and I'm here on behalf of the owners of 78 Celestine Drive.
Okay, I don't believe we need a presentation. Does anyone think we need a presentation? I see Ms. Alderson shaking her head, Mr. Palmer. Does anyone have any questions for the agent?
Danny Bellissimo would like to move if there are no further questions.
Okay.
Find the variances are minor in nature and move for approval of variance number 1, 2, and 4 in the waiver. Conditional forestry conditions. Thank you.
Okay, the application as revised. Thank you, Mr. Bellissimo. Seconder for that. Mr. Palmer, thank you. All in favor? Another unanimous approval.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Okay, the next application is item number 4, 224 Aileen Avenue. And it's an application to construct a new front and rear additions, a 3rd-story addition above the existing dwelling, a new front porch, new rear deck, and a new detached garage. And there's 7 variances. We have supplemental material, supporting material from the applicant, and that's all we have. And again, we only have 1 speaker on this application, Marco Vieira. Mr. Vieira, we have your, perhaps we can get his supporting materials up on the screen. I don't believe, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Marco Vieira here as the agent and the designer. I'm at 257 Raven Drive.
Okay, thank
questions?
You. Yeah, we don't have any comments from city staff or neighbors on this application. We do have your presentation materials. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Vieira or require a presentation?
Danny Bellissimo just has one question on one of the variances, and that is the height variance on number 5. The applicant comment on how that compares to the surrounding neighborhood.
Certainly, through you, Mr. Chair. The variance number 5 is for a proposed wall height of 10.39 meters. We've submitted, supplementary materials to illustrate some of the recently built homes in the area where similar variances have been approved. We do note that the existing house is very close to the property line, similar to the property on our west side, and it has a large setback on the east side. And I believe that the height doesn't impact the adjacent properties. It is in character with what is going on in the neighborhood in terms of the rebuild to the existing 1- and 2-story dwellings, which newer homes, usually with the garage grade, the look of the additional stories above. This particular one, we chose to put a small garage in the back to minimize the height. We are proposing a smaller footprint on the 3rd floor, and we do believe that it is with recently approved.
Did we lose Mr. Bellissimo? Did we lose sound here?
Mr. Chair, I can hear you. It may be
Yeah.
an issue on Marco's end. I'm just gonna try and unmute another participant to see if it's isolated to Marco or if it's a.
Okay.
Hi,
Still here. I can hear you.
Mr. Igelman? Or Marco?
Nope, that's still me.
Marco, you can hear? Okay. It might be an
Yeah,
issue.
it's still me. It's still Marco here. I can hear you guys loud and clear.
Okay. Perfect. Thanks, Marco.
Okay, so Mr. Bellissimo, you have the answer to your question?
Yes, I do. I heard the presentation, and if there are no further questions, I would like to make a motion.
Sorry, I do have a question.
Taylor has a question, so.
Variance number 2 says that the altered dwelling rear addition will be located 0.32 meters from the side lot line. What is the side lot line?
The existing side lot line in the front is 0.21. In the rear, because the existing house is slightly skewed on the lot, the proposal is 0.32 in the rear. So it's
No,
basically going in
Marco,
line
which
with the
side?
existing.
Which side is he? He's asking.
Sorry, that is on
North
the
or
west.
south?
That is on the west side of the property line. The east side has the larger setback with the existing right of way.
Okay, so the notice re-variance 2 isn't clear then, correct?
We'll fix that for the decision in the minutes.
Sorry?
We will fix that for the decision in the minutes to say the
Okay.
west side.
Okay. Sorry, Danny, over to you.
No, it's fine. That was clear in the site plan that I saw. So I'd like to move for approval, find the variances are minor in nature. I believe there are no conditions.
Correct. Okay, thank you, Mr. Bellissimo. Second here for that. Mr. Palmer, all in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Riera.
Mr. Chair, have a good day.
Okay. Okay, next application is item number 5, 42 Kirk Braden Road. Again, we have a revised agenda page with revised notice highlighted in yellow to show the changes and revised plans and waiver. This is an application to construct a 2-story east side addition and a 2nd-story addition above the existing dwelling. And there are, in the revised notice, they've eliminated variance number 5, so there are now 4 variances. We have revised plans, obviously, and a cover letter and applicant's presentation. We have support, 6 or 7 letters of support, I'm not sure. And we have a letter in opposition from 44 Kirk Braden, from Doris Ibrahim, who is registered as a speaker. So we'll hear first from we have Urban Forestry also requesting condition number 2. And we'll hear from the agent, Robert Colucci, who's actually the owner of the property. Although we do have an agent registered, so I'm not sure who's speaking, but we'll find out. Okay. Is it Robert Colucci speaking?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. I think we had correspondence from. Oh, sorry. I was on the wrong item. Sorry, go ahead.
Can you just unmute Robert?
Yeah, he was. I think he must have muted himself. Robert?
Hi there. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Colucci.
Good morning. Sorry about that. Yeah, I was muted. May I just ask staff to have my presentation displayed? Thank you. Okay, good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Robert Colucci, and my wife, along with myself, are the owners of 42 Kirk Braden Road East. Pardon me, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My wife is screaming at me that I'm muted. She's listening on the YouTube, but okay. As long as you guys can hear me. So we do have a brick bungalow home, and we have been here for 10 years, and we would like to add a second story above the existing dwelling and add a small 2-story east side addition. We're a growing family of 6, and we wish to stay in the neighborhood. We have a great relationship with all of our neighbors, and they've been very supportive with their intention to renovate. Please note, as Mr. Chair mentioned, we do have 7 support letters on file from some of our neighbors. We do have variances, which we believe are minor in nature. I will briefly go over them. So they'll be on page 3 on the presentation. Lot coverage. Our lot coverage variance, the permitted is 150.5 meters. We are asking for only 7 square meters or 1.5% more. Next one, pedestrian entrance. This is the variance that we waived, and the waiver is in the file.
Listener, actually, when you're going through the variances, you have that you're going by this the worksheet. You have to go by the variances on the notice.
Okay. So the second one would be the GFI and the FSI on the notice. So I'll speak to that one. This variance is common, and in our opinion is minor. We're proposing 0.69 times the area of the lot, and the permitted is 0.5. In the past few years, well over 30 applications have been approved in the general vicinity, ranging from an FSI of 0.69 to 0.82. The extra space will be spread out across 2 floors, and it also includes the covered porch. We believe what we're asking is reasonable. It's in keeping with other homes in the neighborhood and in any second floor addition project. The third variance on the notice is the front yard setback. The proposed front yard setback is 7.63 meters, whereas the bylaw requires a setback of 8.23 meters. It should be noted that the existing front yard setback is already 7.63 meters, and we're not proposing to go beyond the existing setback. Soffit. The variance regarding the soffit height is to allow a soffit height of 6.86 meters instead of the permitted 6.5 meters. And the last one on the notice is the pedestrian entrance, which I was speaking to earlier, is the variance that we waived. The waiver is on file. The variance was asking for an extra 20 centimeters from the established grade to the main entrance. The city planner had concerns with this and did not offer any compromise. We fully appreciate and understand the importance that city planners review all applications, but frankly, with this one, we couldn't understand the concern as the ask was only to accomplish an 8-foot basement height instead of a 7-foot without having to underpin. Nonetheless, we did want to have a smooth application. So as mentioned, we have waived this variance to comply with planning. Overall, the size of the home will be in keeping with most renovated and new build homes located in the neighborhood in terms of square footage, building width, height, and overall character. The general intent of the zoning bylaws are maintained, and in our opinion, they meet the 4 tests. We are respectfully requesting that the variances in the applications be approved by the committee. We do believe our reasons for the variances do have merit. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, does anyone have any questions? Thank you for that, Mr. Colucci, for that presentation. Does anyone have any questions? If not, we'll hear from the neighbor next door at 44 who's written in.
Danny Belismo has a quick question about your revised plans. Thanks for sending those, because quite clear your entry area highlighted in yellow is being dropped, and the 1 step is being dropped, and basically the entry is now coming down 8 inches, correct?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the feedback. Yes, exactly. So our front entrance to comply with planning had to be dropped, and subsequently we'll have a little bit of a bulkhead in our basement.
So in your elevation, you say lowered pedestrian entry, but you didn't say that it was 8 inches lower. I'm assuming that you will be doing that in revised drawings for for approval anyhow, correct?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, yes.
My calculations was based on metric and Imperial's 8-inch drop. Thank you.
8-inch, yep.
Yeah, right.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Colucci? If not, let's hear from Doris Ibrahim at number 44.
Ibrahim, I live on. Oh. My name is. Oh, sorry.
You're on. We can hear you. Go ahead, ma'am. Perhaps we can get the neighbor's letter on the board as she makes her presentation. Thank you. Okay, the floor is yours, ma'am. Can you?
Yes, my name is Doris Ibrahim. I live on the east side. Do you hear the echo too? Can you hear me clearly?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So I'm the only. First of all, the letter that I sent to you does not say anything that I haven't already said to my neighbors, Robert and Lena. I would like to make it very clear that I submitted the comments and they are not meant as an opposition to the project. So I just wanted to let the committee know that how I'm being affected by the second story and the addition. As you can see from my upper window facing 42 Kirk Bratton Road East, I have a great view and lots of light is coming into my into the room and into the landing and the only, I mean, I understand that houses newer houses are being built, higher houses are being built. So I know that I cannot stop that. But I'm also concerned about the landscape around my property. I have beautiful cedar trees along the fence and a huge locust tree in the backyard. And I'm really concerned that how the second story addition will affect those mature trees. And I also hope that the fence does not have to be removed during the construction. The fence was built in 1991 and we didn't hire a company. All the neighbors, including the previous owner of 42 Kirk Bratton Road East, built the fence together. So this is really, these are really my concerns.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Members, does anyone have any questions for Mrs. Ibrahim? And if not, we'll go back to the agent to respond, or the next door neighbor, actually, the owner, to respond to his neighbor's concerns. Mr. Colucci?
Hi. No, I really appreciate Doris's comments, and we have a great relationship with all of our neighbors, including Doris. We went to all of our neighbors in person in January to deliver packages and let them know ahead of time of our plans. Doris was the first one we went to, so we've had several amicable conversations and we addressed her concerns. Well, with regards to the view, we're not changing either of our side yard setbacks. I mean, where our garage is now, our garage wall, we're just going up to build a second floor. We were careful when we did our designing to try to use what our existing footprint is and not go above the allowable width, depth, and height. You know, and you'll notice too, there's no variance for a height. Like, we're not asking for extra height of the overall house. With regards to the cedars, fortunately, when forestry arrived to inspect, to do their pre-inspection, both Doris and I were outside, and Doris asked the same question. And I think it's picture number 6 from, or page number 8 from her letter. The cedars, they're undersized, number 1. They're under 30 centimeters, and they're right against Doris's house. And if the forestry gentleman said if there's going to be any harm to the cedars, it would be from her house, not mine. My wall is approximately 9 feet to 10 feet away. And the forestry gentleman said the cedars are healthy now, and they're going to remain healthy. They'll receive sun from the south, north, and the west, which is on my side. With regards to the fence, we don't have any intention of taking down that fence. I don't think it would be necessary. Again, we're not changing any side yard setbacks. And with regards to the backyard tree, there's a memo from forestry addressing this tree. So we acknowledge the memo from forestry, and this will be conditional on forestry's blessing, and we're ready to work with forestry and comply with their findings.
Okay.
I think I addressed all of the concerns. Yeah.
Okay, let's see if anyone has any questions for you, or any follow-up questions for the neighbor, or is ready to make a motion on this matter. Any questions?
Danny Bellissimo is ready to make a motion if there are no further questions.
Ms. Alderson, do you have a question? You were going to make a motion.
No. I was going to make the motion, but go ahead.
Okay. In looking at the site plan, I find this proposal is very considerate of the neighbors, and the site plan has an issue with regard to the shape of the lot. It's more like a wedge shape, and it's quite creative in terms of the additions. So I'd like to move for approval of find the variances are minor in nature. That'll be based on the revised agenda page, and it'll be variance number 1, 2, 3, and 4, because 5 has been eliminated, and a condition by forestry.
Thank you, Mr. Bellissimo. Seconded by Ms. Alderson.
Happy to second that. Yep. Mm-hmm.
You all in favor? Another unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Colucci, and thank you, Ms. Ibrahim, as well.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Item 6 has been deferred, so we'll move on to item number 7, 91 Lake Promenade. It's an application to construct a 2-story front addition and a new rear deck. There are 6 variances. This is, we have previous decisions. This matter was before us August 26, 2021 and November 30th, 2021. In each instance, the application was refused. In each instance, including this one, the variances are the, I guess, the main variance, I guess, the FSI, not to belittle any of the other ones, but the one I was tracking is now at 1.07. And we have Long Branch Neighborhood Association guideline checklist. We have TRCA comments, 4 letters of opposition, and Urban Forestry requesting condition number 2. The agent for the applicant is Robert Stern. Sorry, that's the owner. Speaking this is Christian Chan as agent, as well as the neighbor at 89 right next door, and Andy Scholes from the North Long Branch Ratepayers Association ready to speak. So, Mr. Chan, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee.
This is the 3rd application in not even a year.
Yes, I realize that, Mr. Chair. So
maybe getting a volume discount from the city for your. I guess in each instance you didn't choose to appeal the refusals to LPAD, and instead to come back with a fresh application, as is your client's right.
Yes, and I'll speak to that briefly.
Okay.
It's a TLAP application. Sorry, can you hear me okay, Mr. Chair?
Yes, I'm just saying, I just start off with that because I think the neighbors are, somewhat going to be, if I wasn't somewhat annoyed at having to respond to, 3 applications in a little over 6 months. So yeah, in any case, go ahead.
Yeah, I can certainly appreciate that, and I understand their frustrations to that end. with respect to the TLAP proceeding, yes, the previous application before the committee in November was appealed on December 6th, and we've received recently a hearing date for the TLAP in June. So that's a 6-month period. So in the intervening time, and before I was on the file, Mr. Stern reapplied to the Committee of Adjustment, and here we are today, 3 months later, instead of 6 months before TLAB and with a revised application. The revised application before you today is eliminating the below-grade garage, which was the issue, the sole concern that the City Planning Department had with the previous applications that were refused. And as a result of that, the FSI has been revised from 1.11 to 1.07. And I'll speak to that specific variance when I get to further on in my presentations. I'd just like to note that the planning comments from the previous application stand in that, again, the revised proposal before you has the below-grade garage removed as per planning's request. And I'd just like to note that in the November 22nd, 2021 report from planning staff that the removal of the below-grade garage, that the rest of the application would be acceptable. In speaking to the some of the variances regarding massing for building length, front yard setback, and the architectural feature encroachment, I would ask staff if they can please put up page 1 and 3 of my supporting materials. Those would be the maps that we prepared in support of the application. And these maps show that the building is more in line with the neighboring properties, as mentioned by planning staff. And planning staff also mentioned that is harmonious with the street, so they didn't have an initial issue with the building length. When I've also provided a chart. The chart also summarizes all these maps in a different format, which shows a range of the front yard setbacks that occur from the front lot line in the immediate context. And this supports planning staff's conclusion that the proposed front yard setback is well within the range of the front yard setbacks in the immediate context, especially those lots that are backing onto the shoreline. Now regarding the FSI, and that's provided, I've provided a map on page 4 of the supporting materials as well as summarized on this chart. As staff noted, and I peer reviewed their conclusions and confirm that the measurements of the FSI is impacted by the TRC's shoreline hazard limit. The FSI is being calculated solely on the lot area not located within the hazard limit area. And as mentioned by staff in the report, if the FSI was calculated over the entire lot, the resultant floor space index would be 0.42 times the lot area. So without the benefit of having the survey for every shoreline lot, we calculated the lot areas and the FSIs for all the other properties, considering the entirety of lot areas. And that we see here in the chart and on the maps of the FSIs that's being proposed, if it's calculated across the entirety of the lot of 0.42, it exists in the immediate context. And we can clearly see that both on the map and on the chart that the FSI of 0.42 times accounts for the entire lot area and is within the range of the FSIs in the immediate context. Additionally, staff in their November 2022 report didn't have any concerns with the proposed FSI. At that time was 1.11, or over the entire lot 0.47, recognizes that this is common in the immediate context. I would also like to point out if staff can kindly bring up Plan 801 on, I believe it's page 14. The site plan that's provided in the documents, and we can see that the front yard setback and the massing will be in line with the average setback when number 93's development is realized. And so we can see that the massing of the building here, when we draw a diagonal line from the corner of the future proposed 2-story dwelling at number 93, aligns along the lines with number 89's front yard setback. And there's a small appendage where the 10.5 meter variance is sought for the portion of the garage that faces the street. I'd also like to note that TRC in the March 2, 2022 report
Sorry,
no objections.
sorry
no
to
variances.
interject, Mr. Chen. I just wanted to advise that the 5 minutes are now elapsed.
Okay, great, thank you. I'll just make a final point regarding the side yard setbacks is that, as also provided in the map, that this is also characteristic of the area where there are tighter lots on the shoreline lots with smaller side yard setbacks. Note support from 5 properties and also the adjacent property at number 93.
93, okay. Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Chan before we hear from the neighbors? Okay, now we do have, actually I have a question. Do we have a fresh planning report on this?
If I could speak to that, Mr. Chair. No, there hasn't been a revised planning report issued by planning staff. However, I am advised by the applicant, Mr. Robert Stern, that he had discussions with Mr. Bulger, who confirmed through email that there were no objections to the revised proposal.
Okay. Okay, if no other questions, let's hear from the neighbor at 89. And perhaps we can get her letter on the board as she makes her presentation. Andrea Hutka at 89 Lake Promenade.
Hi, this is Andrea Hutka at 89 Lake Promenade. How are you?
Good, welcome back.
Thank you. It seems like we're becoming regulars now. So anyway,
perhaps put your letter on the board while you make your presentation.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So I'm the next door neighbor to the east of 91 Lake Prom, and I've lived here for 39 years in peaceful and quiet enjoyment. And just wanted to mention, the speaker just mentioned that the FSI and the building lengths were 2 of the issues last time, and those really haven't changed. The building length is not, hasn't changed, and the FSI is 1.07, so it's down by like 0.02 or something. Anyway. Bottom line is not much has changed since the last application, and those 2 items were the items that were the reason that it was refused. So just to go back to the rest of my notes here, I just wanted to thank you for letting me speak today, and also for accepting all the letters of objection. And I just wanted to thank the enormous neighborhood support, including Catherine Cotress, who resides at 99 Lake Prom, for her great support and assistance, and for putting me in touch with the experienced professionals. Catherine is currently focused on her involvement with fundraising for the current crisis, but wishes us luck with minimizing the impact of this proposal. It has come to my attention that the applicant was pounding on the doors of our neighbors on the weekend on Monday. This tactic is potentially upsetting to the neighbors. I noticed that there were some last-minute signatures that were gathered in this manner and handed in after the stated deadline. 4 of these signatures are from the north side of the street, and only 1 from the lakefront, being none other than 93 Lake Prom, who has benefited from this back and forth of their respective hearings at the COA. Ultimately, it is clear that the extended wall, which is even longer than 93 Lake Prom's wall, is directly impacting me and my property. I'm really impressed by the support of the neighborhood and the united effort to uphold the character of our neighborhood by reining in the egregious requests by the new developers to overbuild. And it's a real eye-opener to witness the relentless pursuits of the applicant to go to all lengths to get their will done, which is only good for one, the new developer, and not for the greater good. In any event, the overbuild will impact my house immediately, as well as the entire Long Branch community. As this hearing is scheduled yet again today, I've decided to borrow the perfect statement from Christine's letter, as Christine Mercado. Why are we even here? This is the 3rd hearing in just over 6 months, with changes that are minimal and impact to me stays the same. Both of the previous hearings ended up being unanimously refused, and yet we have another hearing which is scheduled for TLAB on June 1st. So the materials for that meeting are not yet available to the best of my knowledge. As I've explained multiple times now in my letters of objection sent in for the previous committee hearings, and I've spoken to this file, I made it abundantly clear that the extension of the additional garage and house will be completely obstructing my view and sunlight from the north and west. And this is something that is absolutely not acceptable for me. And as I stated, I will oppose this to the end. Clearly, the applicant had a better option, and especially since the owners plan to live here for a long time, as they have said, and that option being demolishing the existing decrepit house and possibly unstable structure as described as so by them in their own words, and to propose to build a brand new house utilizing the property properly and fully. It has been rumored that the applicant for 91 Lake Prom is using 93 Lake Prom decisions as a precedent, which is unfair for several reasons. Firstly, 93 Lake Prom is completely building a new house after tearing the old one down. The applicant is not. Secondly, the application for 93 Lake Prom's original approval was started about 5 years ago under the old rules. To my understanding, the rules are now different, and the applicant at 93 Lake Prom benefited from the old rules. If new proposals continue to be evaluated by basing the new limits on the previous precedents, we will have the end result where houses are being built to the middle of Lake Prom, including the reduction of the beautiful mature trees, which are the signature trait of the Long Branch waterfront area. As mentioned in my letter of objection sent in on time for the COA for this file, there are issues that need to be resolved with the TRCA, and Nicole Moxley Planner is looking into these issues as some of them are not resolved. She suggested for me to gain access to the information under the Freedom of Information Act, which I am pursuing. Just a note, the residual FSI, the area beyond shoreline hazard limit, max is 1.07 currently, and the maximum permitted is 0.35. Half of the house that currently stands is already 50% beyond the shoreline hazard limit, according to the info from TRCA. At any rate, the applicant's proposal is unacceptable as they propose to extend the longer wall with no change from the last refused application.
Sorry to interject, Ms. Hudka. I'm just advising that the 5 minutes have elapsed.
Okay, I just want to finish up then.
Just wrap up.
I just wanted to say that based on the fact that the T-Lab is coming up on June 1st, I would ask that this meeting be deferred until after the T-Lab, and should that not be possible, I respectfully request that the application today be refused. Thank you for your time and kind and fair consideration. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Does any members have any questions for Ms. Hudka? Okay, if not, I believe the next speaker, the last speaker is Andy Choles.
Good morning. My name is Andy Choles. I live at 12 Jasmine Avenue in Long Branch, one long block north of this home. I serve on the board of the LBNA, Long Branch Neighborhood Association. I'd like to speak out against the planned build at 91 Lake Promenade. Here we are again. This is the third time I've opposed this particular planned build at the Committee of Adjustment. Minor changes, and I underline the word minor, have been made each time this application returns to the committee, but we still have a build that is 3 times the FSI allocated for this property, 1.07, where 0.35 FSI is prescribed for the lot. The applicant's plans include pages with his new improved method of calculating the lot size, but since the variance was not eliminated, I don't think the planning department is buying it. Since it keeps being mentioned in applications, it would be nice to get some sort of definitive ruling on this alternate method of calculating your lot size. The setback from the street is deficient by 5 meters. That setback is encroached upon by an architectural wall mentioned in variance number 4. The building remains over 4 meters longer than it should be. I'm glad the negative slope driveway is gone, and as is the below-grade garage, but the addition of an at-grade integrated garage adds to the massing of an already oversized house. The storage room beneath the garage is just odd. The final variance reminds us that the home is not 10 meters behind the shoreline hazard or stable top of bank, but somehow the TRCA has signed off on that. I'm not sure why. Of course, there's still the issue of the tree that is at risk of being injured or destroyed as noted in the forestry report, so I draw that to your attention. This is the third time the application has been before this panel. The last application of November 2021 is now an appeal with the T-Lab, which confuses me why we're back here at the Committee of Adjustment with a very similar plan. I was under the impression that you get your judgment at the COA and then appeal to the T-Lab. I'm sure you know that the LBNA is somewhat protective of Lake Promenade. It is home of the Waterfront Bike Trail, which is part of the Cross Canada Great Trail. It is a destination in Long Branch, and the LBNA works to preserve the neighborhood character, which the broader neighborhood features with lower density housing and increased green space, allowing for landscaping and large canopy trees that add to the public realm. The crowding of the lot lines and building overly large homes cuts off the views of the lake that should be able to be enjoyed by the many cyclists on the waterfront trail that is Lake Promenade. Crowding a large house onto a property would likely set a precedent for other overbuilds to occur on this picturesque street. Overbuilds also pose a threat to the tree canopy that is in pretty bad shape these days. An application of this property was refused by the committee on August 26th, November 30th. The plans have changed very little since then. I would urge this committee to stand by their earlier decisions and refuse this application today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scholz. Any questions for Mr. Scholz? And if not, we'll move back to Mr. Chan to respond to the concerns of the two neighbors that spoke, Mr. Scholz and Ms. Hefka.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members, and I thank the neighbors and the interested parties for their comments with regards to this application. Just like to note that I can certainly again appreciate the fact that the application has been before the committee. There is an active application before the TLAB. All these applications are to be considered de novo and on their merits in their own right. I can appreciate pursuant to the Planning Act that the planning authorities shall have regard to previous decisions. But in this case, I'd like to note that the evidence and the facts that is presented before you today at the Committee of Adjustment simply do not substantiate the facts that any of these variances are egregious with regards to the existing and character and context of the immediate context. What I have provided for the mapping regarding building length, this is on page 1 of the supporting material map. You can clearly see that the building length that is being proposed exists in substantial numbers in the immediate context. This is the same for the floor space index if all the properties are calculated with respect to the entirety of the lot area. It is
Sorry if I can just interrupt staff. Could we get Mr. Chan's supplemental materials that we received yesterday? His building length map and front yard map, all those just all his comparison maps. We also got the letters of support that were referred to at that time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, it is well established too, and I can understand Mr. Cho's concerns that the FSI, floor space index, is calculated from beyond the stable top of slope or shoreline hazard limit, and this is throughout the city. If we can turn to the site plan, actually on page 13 of the submitted plans, we can clearly see that the calculations from the architect of how the FSI, the residual FSI on the lot, is calculated. With respect to Ms. Hutka's concern regarding the main walls that are facing her property, we are not seeking any main wall height or height variances that would produce any additional impact upon the side yard setback that is proposed to be extended along the front main wall. Again, all of the variances are within the existing and permitted numerical site standards that exist in the geographic neighborhood, and more specifically in this context, in the immediate context, would of course, in my opinion, and pursuant to policy 4.1.5, is of greater significance because these shoreline lots are of significant different character from all the other lots in the Long Branch neighborhood. I'd also like to note that if there's any improvements or additions to any houses on these lakefront properties, because of the shoreline hazard limit, the only way that any new development can occur on these lots is to the front. In my tour of the neighborhood, and specifically in the immediate context, one can see that there are a number of built forms that extend beyond the front main walls of other houses, and this is a common feature in the immediate context, and we can clearly see that in the maps that I've provided. And in some cases, you can even see ancillary dwellings that are placed in the front yard in the immediate context, which is also something that is not permitted in the bylaw, but is the only way that construction can occur in the immediate context, considering the shoreline hazard limit. With regards to trees, I can certainly appreciate the concern with that. An arborist report has been submitted. The application will be subject to urban forestry condition number 2. In that an application to injure or destroy a protected tree must be submitted. And the arborist report does mention that the tree number 3 will be preserved, and there will be no impacts to it as a result of the construction that is proposed. With that, I'd also like to add that the public interest in this regard is supported by city planning, which do not object to this application. In fact, only objected to the below-grade garage, which has since been eliminated from the proposal. And I'd just like to reiterate that the guidelines have been reviewed both by city planning and by the applicant and provided the chart, the Long Branch design guidelines chart. And in the city's opinion, except for the below grade garage, which has now been removed, meets the 4 tests, and also in my professional opinion as well, in that the proposal respects and reinforces the existing built form as clearly evidenced by the factual information on the charts provided before you today.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Chan and staff? Could we get the old planning report from the November 30th hearing? Because I didn't see sort of see it in my package. Perhaps there's been some
That was for the old file, so it wasn't part of this application.
Right, okay. Because I guess it was, we've heard from Mr. Chan that but for the below grade garage, community planning was fine. And Mr. Chan, I guess you don't have a copy of that in your materials.
I do have a copy of it in my materials. I did submit it to staff earlier this morning, so it may not be as part of the AIC file before you. However, I can read from it if you would like. I can bring it up.
Well, you didn't anyway. You didn't. You had your presentation. You had your rebuttal. So, in any event, I just that was my question. Anyone have any other questions for either Mr. Chan or the other speakers?
Danny Bellissimo, that's a question for the applicant. And could I have staff put on the location map? Could we see what you put on now? Sorry, staff. Thank you. So question for the applicant, as we don't have the planning reports passed or even a report on this proposal, we just have your word for it for now. What was planning's opinion on the front yard setback being so large as a revision, and also the total length of the building being excessive, perhaps? I can get to those numbers. They were, front yard setback is almost 18 feet closer than allowed, and the total length is 14 feet longer than allowed. So could you remind me of what planning said about those two variances in the past? You said that hasn't changed. Is that correct?
They have changed. And through you, Mr. Chair, I'll just answer the question and read directly from the report. So planning staff had initial concerns with the applicant, and the applicant has since revised the plans. This is the plans that were before you in the November application. So revisions to the floor space index to 1.11 times, and this is now further revising the application before you today in 1.07. The building length reduced to 21.3 meters, which is before you today.
I'm just asking for revisions number 2 and 5. 2 is the setback, the front yard setback, and number 5 is a building length of 17 meters to 21.3 meters. Front yard setback 15.9.2, where 10.5 is allowed. So I just want you to comment on those two. I don't need a whole presentation. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Staff concluded that those changes that are before you today, the same numerical variances to the building length, front yard setback, and encroachment of the architectural feature into the front yard setback bring the building more in line with the neighboring properties of the east and west. And then planning staff concluded that these changes allowed the proposal to fit more harmoniously with the pattern of the street.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Either from Mr. Chan or the other speakers, or is someone ready to weigh in with the motion? Mr. Taylor.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this committee didn't feel that a project on this property as submitted in August 21 met any of the 4 tests of the Planning Act. Came to the same conclusion in November. And now we're faced with an application that is about 10 meters squared less in FSI, no change to the building length. So my inclination is to again find that the proposal does not meet any of the 4 tests, and I move refusal.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Do I have a seconder for Mr. Taylor?
Belismo seconds the motion.
Thank you, Danny. All in favor? The application is again unanimously refused. Thank you, Mr. Chan. Thank you, Mr. Scholes and Ms. Hudka. And have a wonderful afternoon. We'll move on to the next item. And I think after the next item, we'll have a, which is also opposed, we'll have a break at that point. Because we've been at this, at that point, it'll be like 2 hours, if that's acceptable to everyone. Okay, so the next hearing is item number 8. 21 Elder. And it's an application to construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage. And there are 4 variances. And we have the Long Branch checklist, urban forestry asking for condition number 1. And the speaker is Mr. Eddie Perez. We also have Mr. Scholes registered to speak on this matter. Welcome, Mr. Perez.
Hello, good morning, Chairman and committee members. I'm here on behalf of the owner and the designers. As you said, we're proposing to build a new house with a attached garage. Variances are modest and minor in nature. We also designed the house next door, which the variances were very similar to what we're proposing for this one. So we're keeping within the character of the area, and I feel that it meets the 4 tests. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perez. Any questions for Mr. Perez at this point? Okay, if not, let's hear from Mr. Scholes. And that's the only other speaker we have. Welcome back, Mr. Scholes.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is. Can you hear me now?
Up on the board? Thank you. Sorry about that.
Morning. My name is Andy Scholes. I live at 12 Jasmine Avenue, Long Branch, and a board member of the LBNA. I'm here to speak in opposition to this application. The FSI for the proposed build is almost twice the permitted allowable, 0.66 rather than 0.35 for this property. Side yard setbacks have been reduced to 0.7 on the east side and 0.65 on the west, rather than the recommended 0.9 meters. Side walls are excessively high at 7.24 meters. The home is long at 7.15 meters. That will present a long, tall, blank wall to the neighboring home to the east. The home to the west has a similar long, blank wall of a similar designed home. I thought this address sounded somewhat familiar when I prepped my presentation. Number 23 Elder next door to the west was in the Committee of Adjustment last April. At that point, there was a letter of objection from the homeowners at number 21, Melissa Yake and Nicholas Russell, worried about the loss of privacy and green space. I tried to approach these folks to speak at the Committee of Adjustment hearing, but they up and sold the home, possibly to this applicant. I do note that the same designer is for this home at number 23, so the behemoth homes are marching down the street one by one, each with a huge blank wall. I guess the next buyout will be 17 Elder. Beta Street, the first presentation of the Committee of Adjustment today, shows a similar trend where the prevailing house style is trying to be altered in this area. I fear that's what's trying to be going on here in Long Branch. Beta Street's not in Long Branch, so it's not outside of our jurisdiction. There is one thing the applicant does not mention at all. Toronto Forestry notes that a city-owned bylaw protected tree may be injured or lost, but the applicant makes no reference to this and states on their tree declaration that no trees will be killed or injured. There is a street tree on the boundary between 21 and 23 that appears on the survey. It does not appear at all on the plan for the home. Is this the tree that's under peril? A very tall overbuilt house with an FSI triple the allowable density. Tall, long, blank side walls facing a neighbor create a home that is not appropriate to the neighborhood. A city tree at peril is not even mentioned in the applicant's paperwork. I would request that this committee refuse this application. If not refuse, defer the application until something more appropriate can be built, something that adheres a little more closely to the bylaws set out in the official plan and the Long Branch character guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scholes. Any questions for Mr. Scholes, panel members? Ms. Alderson?
I have a question. I'm looking at the tree right now on Google Maps, and it's on a serious angle. I don't think it's a healthy tree, actually. if it's the tree that you're referring to, it's between the two homes. So it looks like it's not straight. It's very much on an angle, and I'm just wondering about the health of that tree. And that's perhaps why they haven't included it, because it maybe needs to come down.
Well,
I'm
it
not sure
was,
if there was an arborist report done on this tree or not.
I did not find an arborist report. I know the forestry has said, you know, they're going to have to file an application, but he doesn't even mention it. His tree declaration, you know, trees taken out, no, 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 all the way through.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm just wondering if that's why he's eliminated it, because it's not a healthy tree. But
Okay.
it looks to me like it's on a very serious angle. That's all. That's all I'm
It is a
saying.
city tree.
Maybe a city tree, but it's also on an angle, serious angle.
Okay, perhaps Mr. Perez in his rebuttal can enlighten us about that tree. And in the meantime, I think someone's got a radio on in the background. Does anyone else hear that? In the event, maybe we'll start a new trend. Have music playing in the background during our hearings. Okay, Mr. Perez, back to you, sir. Urban Forestry 1 and the comments from Mr. Choles, please. How about we all try muting and one by
I again, yeah, we had the what do you call it? We had a report done from arborists and all that, and they said the tree wasn't too healthy. But we will be in contact with forestry throughout this whole process, and we're gonna make sure that we do what's best for the city-owned tree and also what's best for the property itself. And that tree wasn't too healthy, so that's why it wasn't mentioned on there, like the committee member is saying. But we also had the arborist report done, and we will be submitting all that to forestry and to make sure that everything is according to what their bylaws and things they want us to do. So moving forward, we will be working with forestry as well. And as for the variances that the gentleman is saying that they're made, variances are very minor. We're only 15 centimeters over in the length. We're allowed 17 meters. We're at 17.15. That is very minimal. Also, the height is only 24 centimeters difference as well. And for GFA, it's very common on these narrow lots to be at 0.66, even greater than 0.66, because the lots are very narrow. If you do at 0.35, the house would be very minimal, be around 1,000-something square feet, which you know, nobody would want to build at that square footage at the present time. So what we are proposing is very minor in nature and is in keeping in the area. And it's many lots in the area that are built at 0.66 or greater than 0.66. So I feel, like I said earlier, that the variances are minor in nature, and you can take it in consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Perez. Any questions for Mr. Perez or for Mr. Choles, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion?
Danny Belismo has a quick question. It may be irrelevant, but the question for the applicant. Is planning weighed in on this at all? Have you had any discussions with planning? Have you have any views of their opinion?
Planning never got in touch with us on this project, so I take it that they're on board with it.
That's what I wanted to clarify, because I wanted to make sure I didn't miss something. Thank you.
Yeah, and our last one, they commented when we did 23, but this one is similar to that one. And we did it according to what got approved last time. So that's why they probably didn't comment on this one.
Okay. Thank you. Any further questions, or is someone ready for a motion? Mr. Palmer?
No question, but I'm ready for a motion. I find the variances requested minor in nature and meeting the forecasts in the Planning Act. So I'll move for approval subject to forestry condition number 1.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Alderson. All in favor? Another unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Perez. Thank you, Mr. Choles. And it is now exactly 11:30.
Thank you.
You want a thank you, sir. 10 or 15 minutes. can talk about it for 5 minutes, then it'll be 15. So let's be back here at 11:15 then. Sorry, 11:45, 11:45, and continue with the morning session. Thank you.
your hands together for the great Latino, Ray Ramon.
Okay, welcome back. Are we back, staff? Are you back up on YouTube or?
Hold on, Michael, we're just having a few issues, okay?
Okay, thank you. Getting that music again. Kind of nice.
Hi, Michael, can you hear me? No. Any of the members, can you hear me? Oh, I have to unmute the. Hey, members, can you hear me?
Yes.
Are you able
I
to
can.
see the clock on the screen, like the clock in the chambers, or no?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. So we're halfway there. We can see it on the screen, but it's not showing up on YouTube.
So can we, and what's with the music? We figured out where that music is
I don't
coming
know.
from.
Michael, I don't know about the music. We've tried almost everything in the break and we haven't been able to figure it out. It seems like it's
Okay.
kind of going away now, so fingers crossed.
Okay, let me know when we can start.
Okay, Paul's just gonna leave the webinar and come back in just so that, I don't know, hopefully that shows the screen, but we can get started in a couple of minutes. I'll give you the heads up though.
Awesome.
Okay, looks like we're in business.
Okay, good.
We can go. The AV person is just going to zoom in on the clock, but we can go.
Okay, not a problem. Okay, next application is item number 9, 16 Sunnylee Avenue East. It's an application to construct a 2-story rear addition, a new front porch, a new rear deck. And there are 8 variances. We have we didn't really have anything other than the plan submitted with the application, but in the additional materials we have now received yesterday, revised notice. There are now 6 variances, and we have support from various neighbors, and we have a letter of concern from 14 Sunnylee and from 14 Glen Aiden. And
There's
the
one
speaker,
additional letter and concern from 18 Sunnylee, so we'll share that in a bit. But it did come in time, we just missed it.
okay. And that's again in the supplemental. And the speaker on this application, the agent for the applicant is Tony Diodati, and we have the neighbor from 16 Sunnylee registered to speak as well. There's no 16. Oh, so 16 is the subject property. So is that just the owner observing? Obviously, we only have one speaker, so let's see the name of the owner. Souza. Yeah. So no. So on the speakers list, I have the neighbor at 16 Sunnylee registered, Carlo D'Souza. Is that a typo? Because that's not the name of the owner. So perhaps while we hear from Mr. Diodati.
Carl D'Souza is 18 Sunnylee.
Okay, so on my sheet it said they were at 16. So okay, the party who just sent in the letter we haven't seen, which we'll have on the screen when they're making their presentation. And that's Mr. D'Souza. So first we'll hear from Tony Diodati, the agent.
Yes, hello. Hello, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Tony Diodati. I am the applicant, agent, and architect for this proposal, and I'm here to represent the owners for this fairly modest addition and renovation project. Originally, when the zoning notice was drafted, we had 9 variances to be considered, and in working with the planning department, we have reduced 6 of those variances in their request. We have eliminated 1, and 2 remain unchanged. And
Staff,
yes,
perhaps, sorry, we'll give you a little extra time. Staff, could we have the revised notice and the additional materials up on the board, please?
Yep, I'm on it.
Thank you. Okay, and just to do that, and perhaps restart the clock as well. Okay, thank you.
okay. So before you, we now present a revised request or zoning variances that have been revised in order to satisfy planning department's concerns. We believe these revisions now are more in keeping with the guidelines for the neighborhood. And as well, we worked with planning to eliminate 1 altogether. The drawings are, we do have revised drawings that accompany this, and we feel that the new variances are in keeping with the planning and meet the 4 tests of the planning. We have 6 letters of support from neighbors, and I was aware of 1 letter from the neighbor at 14 Sunnylee. However, upon reading the content, the concern seems to be more about the phasing of construction rather than specific zoning concerns. And I have not seen the any letter of objection from 18, but I do understand that they are available to speak. We feel that overall, though, our proposal is quite modest in its request, and we did our best to respect the existing context, both in terms of our footprint, of our floor plans, and of our massing and overall design. Therefore, we request your acceptance of our proposal and approval of our variances.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any questions for the agent, for the applicant at this point? And okay, so if not, we'll hear from the neighbor, and perhaps we can get that letter we haven't seen yet up on the board while the neighbor is speaking. From 18.
Yes, hi. Actually, my name is Amanda Wells. I'm speaking for Carl right now because he's not available, but I'm also a co-owner at 18 Sunny Lee, and we're directly east of 16. We're actually quite close neighbors, and we're very good friends with the owners. And so we've already spoken to them about our concerns on February 20th. And so they're aware of our concerns for their property. I know you guys just received our letter, so I'm going just to kind of go through it with you and outline our concerns. Thanks so much for letting us have this opportunity. We wanted to speak about the variances related to 1 and 4 and pertaining to the 7 feet 4 inch extension.
We lost the room, Paul.
Okay.
Okay, good. Okay,
Amanda?
please continue.
Yeah, so as I was saying, our main concern is the practically 2-story addition that's going on the back that goes beyond the precedents that have already been set by 14 Sunny Lee Avenue, which is on their neighbor to the west, because it really would significantly impact the sunlight to our home and yard, requiring possible removal or moving of the current softscape of gardens, trees, grass, etc. So that's where our concern lies. And we, as I mentioned, we already had discussed this with our neighbors, and so they were who agreed to discuss with their architects any potential options for mitigating that. Yeah, so that's all for us. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wells. Any questions for the neighbor?
Danny Bellissimo has a question. Could you clarify for me, you've seen there are 8 variances. Which of the variances are you concerned about? I understand you're concerned about the overall, but can you ask which?
So I believe there are variances 1 and 4.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Ms. Wells? We'll go back to the agent for his rebuttal.
Yes, hello.
Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Would it be possible to pull up our drawing our site plan A100?
Do you
Reference
revised one?
Either or, because that's fine. It could be the revised one.
Sure.
There we go.
Yes, and if you wouldn't mind zooming into the east side of the property, specifically at the addition at the rear.
Like that? Or
yeah, or even a bit closer, please.
So you're showing where it jogs back after the garage.
Not at, so the garage is on the west side of the property, would be on the opposite side, the east elevation. You could see it at the top of the page. So why I want to bring this up in response to the neighbors.
Oh, right. She's at 18, not 14.
Right. In response to the neighbor's concern, like as mentioned by the neighbor, the homeowners do have a good relationship with the neighbors on all sides. And they had approached me to ensure that they wanted to make clear that they wanted this addition and project to be sensitive to the neighborhood context. Specifically with the east side, we currently have a very narrow setback of 2 feet 7 inches at its most narrow. What we did is to help minimize the impact is we began to step back the addition away from the property line. As you could see, it takes 2 distinct steps along that east side. The portion that's 7 feet 4 inches that the neighbor has highlighted is over 5 feet away from the property line, right? And that we saw as advantageous for natural light, not only on our side, but even to the neighbors. As well, the portion of the second story addition at the rear at the east side is not the full length of the addition. It is only at most 12 feet. That is a second floor addition. The remaining 12 feet is only a single story addition. And so therefore, specifically, the 7 feet 4 inch projection or breakfast nook that is brought up is only a single story in height, right? And in doing so, we thought that would minimize any sort of visual impact and any light impact on our property and the neighbors. As well, we are not requesting any building length or depth variance here. So overall, I believe that the building footprint from front to back is well within the zoning bylaws. And lastly, there was mention that the concern was with minor variance number 1 and 4. So we have worked with planning to reduce the request for the first variance, and we have eliminated variance number 4 altogether, as now we comply with the zoning.
So is that something shown on your revised?
Yes, correct. On the revised plans, we have lowered.
You were making a further reduction today at the hearing. Okay. Go, please continue.
Yes, so we believe that we have been quite sensitive to issues of visibility, views, light with our proposal. And we do want to maintain the, naturally a good relationship with the neighbors, all neighbors on all sides. And we were pleased that the planning department did accept our revised variances, and we respectfully request that you accept our proposal as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Diodati. Any questions, Mr. Palmer? Thank you. Go ahead.
I heard about a revision to variance 4 that it's been eliminated. So maybe the applicant can just clarify the changes to the variances requested, because we
Okay.
got one set of revisions, I guess, yesterday,
Yes.
and now we just heard about another revision right now. So maybe you can just go through variances 1 through 8, just to clarify what, if any, changes there are to each variance
So
requested.
today I'm not proposing any further changes to the variances. I'm only highlighting the ones that we have before us that are now highlighted in yellow in what you brought up on the screen. So specifically, for the.
Sorry, I thought I heard you just say that
I just asked
4
him.
was eliminated.
I thought I heard that also, but he said that's
Yes.
our things that have been
So-
reflected on the in the revised drawings.
That's right. So I'm sorry, I'm referring to the original zoning notice, and item number 4 dealt with the height of the main entry relative at the front wall relative to grade. That was the original number 4, and that has since been eliminated. And now this is a new list in front of you.
Okay, so the list in front of us is what we're considering right now.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And they're reflected in the revised plans that are dated March 22nd or February 22nd, it looks like.
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further questions, or is someone ready to weigh in?
Danny Bellissimo is ready to make a motion if there are no further questions.
Let's go ahead.
So looking at the waiver revision 8 variances, and I duly note that this is a rear addition, 1 story, and the jogging of the building at the east end is respectful of the neighbor. So I'd like to move for approval of the variances as per the revised application waiver.
Thank you, Mr. Bellissimo. And there are no additions. Seconder for that motion. Mr. Taylor, thank you. All in favor? Another unanimous decision. You have your approval. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members.
Okay, our next application is item number 1044 Old Ham Road. It's an application to construct a 2-story east side addition, which will include an extension to the existing garage, a new rear deck, and a 2nd-story addition above the existing dwelling. There are 5 variances. And all we have is a letter of support from 46 Old Town Next Door. Although we do have a neighbor at 42 registered to speak. And the agent is Gianna Regina of Cityscape Design Innovations. So we'll start off with Gianni Regina.
Afternoon, Mr. Chair, respective committee panels, members, and staff. My name is Johnny Regina, reside at 38 South Piano Crescent, and I'm here and speaking to this application. The application before you is an addition to an existing footprint and an existing backsplit condition of the dwelling. I wanted to note that there's a neighborhood petition that was signed and posted with multiple neighbors on the street as well as the adjacent property. The variances you see in front of your conditions of the existing situation of the house, that's a backsplit. So with regards to item number 1, I want to point out that if you refer to the floor plans, there's a 2nd-story vaulted area or 2-story addition on the upper level of that rear that we're making 2 stories. So a greater proportion of that area is being included in the lot area because there's only a small reduction. In moving that garage forward, they have to include a certain portion of that area as well into the actual FSI count. So deducting some of those areas in terms of the void and the extra garage space, which is included, the actual dwelling itself would be closer to 47.5%, and the difference being made up of those areas that they have to include just because of the way the bylaw is written. With regards to item number 2, it's an existing front wall condition. We are not coming beyond that existing front wall. With regards to item 3, the side walls, we're not going beyond the existing side walls. It's an existing condition. With regards to item 4, because of the existing house being a backsplit, it obviously, and building that area up to mediate over the second floor, it's going to raise our eaves height there. So that's why there's a condition there. And with regards to item number 5, it only pertains to the front elevation, the middle portion, which is flat, to give the house some kind of street appeal or curb as the client wanted to see. So we kindly request that our application be approved, that it meets the 4 tests of the planning principles. At this point, if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those.
Okay, thank you, sir. And I didn't point out, thanks for catching that. I mentioned the support letter from 46 next door, that there is a petition in support with, I just counted from 11 residences. And that leads us to the neighbor at 42, who is here to make submissions. And the neighbor is Zelia Pereira at 42 Oldham. Welcome.
Good morning. I'm just here to listen. I didn't have anything else to say except good luck.
Oh, sorry, you don't have concerns or an opposition. You're just
No, not at all. I said that in the beginning. I was just here to listen to the proceedings.
Oh, okay. Very good. So I guess there's no need for a rebuttal. Committee members, any questions for the applicant, or someone ready to weigh in with a motion?
Any Belisma would like to weigh in with the motion if there are no further questions? Given what the applicant was explaining, they come with an existing footprint and making a lot of additions. I think that this application is in character with the surrounding neighborhood. Move for approval of the variances. No
Thank you. Thank you. Seconder for that? Ms.
Happy to
Aldridge?
second that motion.
Okay, all in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. You have your approval.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
You too. Okay, the next application is 36 17th Street. And it's an application to construct a second-story addition above the existing dwelling, a new front porch and a new rear yard deck. There are 3 variances, and we have revised plans, a highlighted revision agenda sheet showing, I'm not sure what it's showing, but we'll hear from perhaps the revised agenda page doesn't seem to have any. Oh, sorry. Variance 3 has the second story flat front porch, front platform has been removed. And so that is why we have a revision. And we have planning has prepared us a report for information. Advising if the basement wasn't included, the FSI would be approximately 0.64, and they have no objections to the revised variances. And that's all we have. We don't have any comments from other city departments or area neighbors. And the one speaker is the owner, Adam Penson. Welcome, Mr. Penson.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and respected members of the committee and staff. My name is Adam Penson. My application file number is A00422EYK. I'm the owner, so if you'd like me to give a statement, I'm going to just do it in lay terms.
I don't think we need a presentation. Committee members, would you agree we don't need a presentation? It's a very straightforward application. We are running quite behind in any event, but I don't think we need a presentation. Perhaps we'll just see if any of the members have any questions for you, and if not, and we do have the planning report for information, whether someone's ready to weigh in with a motion.
I'm happy to weigh in with a motion. I think this is a very straightforward application. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to hear them, but if no one has any questions, I move for acceptance. I believe it meets the 4 tests, and I move for acceptance of the 3 variances. 1 has been reduced and with no other conditions.
Okay, yeah, there isn't any conditions on this.
No conditions.
Okay, thank you for that. Seconder for that motion, Mr. Boothman.
I would second the motion. Just to clarify, it's revised agenda item.
Yes.
We're looking at. Thank you.
And we indicated what it was for the elimination of the front second floor balcony.
Right.
Okay, all in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Penson.
Thanks very much. Have a great day.
Okay. Item number 12 is 21 Brome Road. It's an application to construct a second-story addition above the existing dwelling, a straight top-up with 2 variances. And we have supporting material and plans. We have 3 letters of support. Planning has weighed in with a report advising that to refuse variance 1, the front yard setback. And so my question to the only speaker, as I introduced the speaker, is whether, it's Mr. Romano, whether that kind of would kibosh the whole project, if that is eliminated, or whether he could work through that and what his position is on the planning report. And that's all we have on this application. There's no other conditions or communication from neighbors or anyone else. Mr. Romano?
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for this opportunity. So that front yard setback is an existing condition, and depending on the zone examiner is going to count that front wall where it currently is, or identify a variance as to where the main front wall of the dwelling is, which is in behind the porch. So that 4.48 meters is to the front porch, which has a full basement that is elevated, comes out of the ground.
So that's an existing condition. This is just a straight top
condition. Correct. So the top up includes the footprint behind the porch, and then the 2-story portion that is at the 4.48 meters is where the front porch currently exists with its roof and pillars, but it's only for half of the dwelling. So when you look at the supporting material, what you're going to see along Brome Road is that there is some undulation to that front wall setback, and really right next door at number 23, what is being proposed is a mirror image of that, where there's a notch at the front, and then the part of the front wall is closer to the street. But in this case, it's not really closer to the street because that's where it is today. So I disagree with staff that there's, number one, a consistent front yard setback along Brome, because Brome does have a little bit of undulation itself. And I disagree that there's any adverse impact resulting from this. This is actually a sensitive design. It still maintains the detached garage in the back. And taking a look at how that 2 stories for that 4.48 meter front yard setback manifests itself, it's for a 6.79 meter wall height and about an 8.5 meter overall height. So it's less than what the zoning bylaw would allow as of right. So I would submit that what's being proposed here does indeed respect and reinforce the neighborhood character and the front wall alignment along Brome Road. And of course,
Okay,
the other variance is the existing west side yard setback.
So I guess what, just in fairness, what community planning was opposed to is the enclosing the front porch and building above, not that you should go and, because it's an existing, what's there is there, but their position, not to enclose it and build above that. Okay, any questions from Mr. Romano, or someone ready to weigh in with a motion?
Danny Bellissimo is ready to weigh in for motion. No further questions. I agree with the applicant. This is a very sensitive design, and the porch already protrudes anyhow into the front yard, and so I don't find it's an issue as planning is noted. So I move for approval of the variances. I find them minor in nature. I don't believe there are any conditions.
Correct. Okay, seconded for that motion, Ms. Alders.
Happy to second that.
Okay, all in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Romano. We'll see you this afternoon.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, next application is item number 13, 40 Meadowvale Drive. It's an application for a 1-story addition and to extend the rear yard deck. We have 3 variances, 2 letters of support, urban forestry looking for condition number 2. And I believe we only have 1 speaker on that. Yes, Bill Hall, the agent for the applicant. Mr. Hall, welcome.
Yes, can everyone hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Perfect, okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. we have before you three fairly minor variances, all of which are derived from an existing home. All of the variances, in fact, are because the existing condition and the existing rear deck in question is legal non-conforming currently. So nothing is really changing. The deck is getting slightly larger. And in terms of the house, we're adding a 5 foot by 5 foot mudroom airlock at the back. So again,
And okay with urban forestry condition 2 being imposed?
That's correct.
Okay, so let's just see if very straightforward, no city departments other than the forestry looking for conditions or comments. So let's see if they have any questions for you or if someone's ready to weigh in with a motion.
Danny Bellismo is ready to weigh in for motion if no further questions. I find this design is very sensitive. It's a rear addition, has very minimal impact on the neighbors, and I would move for approval of the variances subject to forestry condition.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bellissimo. Second for that. I can't see everyone's screen, so if you can call out rather than put up a hand.
Palmer will second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? And again, I can't see the hand, so I assume it's unanimous.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Next application, item number 14, 7 Bearwood Drive. It's an application to construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage. And there are, we have a revised highlight in yellow notice with revised plans and revised waiver. So we do have that in this case. There were 8 variances, one of which has been reduced, the flat roof height. We have revised notice and planning. Planning's waiting. I believe they're okay with the revision. Ravines has no condition, TRCA has no objection, and we have a letter of concern from number 9 regarding the roof line that perhaps they don't know if it's been reduced or not, but the applicant or the only speaker registered is Bruno Lopez, agent for the applicant.
Yes, Mr. Chair, good morning. My name is Bruno Lopez from MXL Engineering, and I'm representing the owner.
Okay. Very straightforward. Planning has advised us that they're on side with your revisions. We had that letter of concern. There are no other people registered to speak. I assume perhaps you can just enlighten us as to whether that letter of concern was before or after the reduction. It's from 9 Bearwood.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we were aware of the letter as well, and actually this was actually a parallel concern. This was the concern from planning, was the allowable height. So we reduced the height. We met the threshold that planning proposed. Planning was satisfied fully with the application. We have the support from TRCA, Toronto Ravines, pretty much the entire city staff. Yeah. And yes, we did the adjustment. We did it in high speed, so we don't lose our spot on this committee. And that's pretty much about it. It's a very straightforward application. It's about 9 variants, or actually 7 variances, but most of them are triggered by existing conditions. So the very highlight of the project, and a couple of them were due to the fact that we changed the garage entrance, or let's say the driveway, from one side to the other side. It triggered a couple new variances, but in essence, the building stays pretty much about the same. We reduced the height. We are actually right now below the current existing height of the building. So it's a very straightforward application.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the agent, or is someone ready to weigh in with motion? Again, I can't see the screen, so please speak out. There we go. Now I can see this. Mr. Taylor.
We'll move, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. No conditions. Or, oh no, we have urban forestry 1.
Yes, we do. So yeah, I find the application meets the 4 tests. I move approval subject to urban forestry condition 1.
Thank you. Seconded for that is Alderson. Thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Okay, the next application is item number 1545 Victoria Boulevard. It's to construct a new detached garage with 3 variances, and we have nothing whatsoever. The speaker, only one, is Mr. Eddie Perez. Welcome back, Mr. Perez.
Good morning again, or good afternoon. Yeah, we're proposing.
Good afternoon already, yes.
Same
Very
location.
straightforward. I don't believe we need a presentation unless there's anything you'd like to just highlight for us. Otherwise, let's just see if anyone has any questions for you. We have nothing whatsoever other than the plans and the survey filed with the application. Okay, any committee members, any questions for Mr. Perez, or someone ready to weigh in on this?
Annie Bellissimo would like to move for approval, find the variance of minor in nature, and there are no conditions.
Okay, thank you. Seconded for that, Mr. Taylor. Saw your hand up before. All in favor? Another unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Perez.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 16 is 65 Grenview Boulevard North. It's an application to construct a new detached dwelling with attached garage. And lots on this. We have revised notice and the additional, no, we have first of all, we have 10 variances on this. We do have 2 letters of support. We have opposition from the neighbors, quite a number of neighbors. I didn't add them up. In the additional materials, this is, urban forestry is looking for condition number 4. Now, most importantly, in the additional materials, we have a request for a deferral from the area councillor. Perhaps we should deal with that at the outset. We have the speaker for this application is Antonella Wild, the agent for the applicant, as well as the neighbors from 63 Grenview and 68 Wendover. But we do have a request from, before we get into the merits, there was a revised notice. That's right. It was what it was. It was to correct some just typographical errors on the original notice. The word detached was missing the D, and it was 42%, not 421%. So those were clarified and cleaned up, just to clean up those small typographical errors. Do we have Antoine Wild? Perhaps you can enlighten us. Are you aware of this request by the councillor to defer this matter?
I am aware. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, and I realize it's also hinges on the deferral request for urban forestry. Now, we do have an arborist hired. We would like to remove variance number 10 for the width of the driveway in response to urban forestry's concern.
Okay, let's not get into, I'm just saying, are we going to proceed to,
I want to proceed. I feel that it really has to do with urban forestry, and we're ready to speak to that and understand the condition in place.
Okay, I'm just looking at the councillor's letter. He says, and we don't have one. Usually he mirrors on piggybacks, and he says, planning agrees, and I agree with planning that it should be deferred or refused. This, it seems, on his own. He does note that there's a city tree involved in the comments by urban forestry, but he doesn't, and he piggybacks on their request to defer, but he doesn't mention that there are 10 variances, and as a whole it may have an impact beyond minor. So I can't read between his lines to see if he is and the issue is urban forestry is looking, I see condition number 4, not
condition. Yes, and also just to comment on the community planning, I did reach out to them early enough to make any changes if they had any recommendations, and they had no comments or concerns. So I do have changes that I am proposing with in relation to what the neighbors are concerned about. So I feel that we should proceed.
Okay, are these changes you're going to make on the fly here today, that you're going to start making reductions to some of the, or eliminating some of the variances?
I am going to eliminate 4 variances and
Okay.
reduce the FSI variance.
Okay, so I guess first we should perhaps have the members consider the request from the councillor, whether I guess some of these eliminations are going to have an impact on perhaps the trees and retention of the existing trees, which you will explain in your proposal. But I guess we should perhaps see if the committee feels that a deferral is necessary on this matter. So perhaps we
While
can.
we're here,
Yes.
I'm not sure what the nature of the changes are, but you know, if there are changes to the notice required, I think the matter should be deferred. So that everyone involved, the counselor, the neighbors, planning department, if they didn't submit a report, but I think to be fair to everyone, if there's changes other than if they're very minor, then we should get a deferral.
Danny Bellissimo agrees. Hearing 4 changes out of 8 is excessive in my mind as well.
Yeah, it is out of 10, but let's not quibble. It is 4. And the other issue is, I guess, the council does not specifically state that it's just because of the tree concerns. But I do say at the opening remarks that if the committee may not entertain revisions today in order to ensure that both that they're accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application have been informed of the changes. So we do have a motion and a seconder for the deferral. All in favor? Okay, the matter is unanimously will be deferred. We didn't speak to the 2 neighbors, but their position on deferral, I assume, is they would also the committee wants to have an accurate thing, and there will be a re-notification to those neighbors. So thank you, Ms. Weld. We'll see you again. Okay, the next application is item number 1754 Algoma.
Here.
Algoma Street. It's an application for a new detached garage. There's one variance, which is the ancillary building distance from the side lot line. Transportation is recommending refusal. No other comments. The speaker is Mel Rosenblatt of Brentwood Construction.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome, sir.
Thanks, committee members. I didn't realize at this time that there was a recommendation for refusal from transportation.
No, approval.
Oh, an approval. Oh, sorry. Yeah, well, my application was very straightforward. There's a curb cut and there was an existing garage there before.
Yeah, and there's only one variance, is the ancillary distance to your ancillary building from the side lot.
Yeah.
Garage. Okay, so let's just see if anyone has any questions. Hope I didn't give you a heart attack there when you heard me.
No, almost, but no, I'm okay now.
Okay, sir. Any questions for Mr. Rosenblatt or someone ready for a motion?
I just wanted to ask if the applicant had seen the comments that transportation did make, because I believe there were some comments. I don't recall what they were, but I have a notation here that there were some comments.
They would have sent those comments to me, so I don't believe they were aware of it, but I'm looking at them now.
You're looking at them now, and
yeah,
I just wanted to make sure that you'd seen them, and if so, I'm prepared to make a motion for approval.
Yeah, just to clarify, looking at it, says here that the requested side yard setback variance is acceptable to transportation service perspective. However, the proposal advised that vehicles parked in the lead-in portion of the driveway will encroach into the Wesley Street public right-of-way and block the travel portion, etc., and will be subject to tagging or towing. So it's just sort of a notice, advisory.
An advisory notice, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so if no one has any other questions, I'm prepared to make a motion for approval with no conditions.
Danny Bellissimo seconds the motion.
All in favor? Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Rosenblatt. You have your approval.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.
Okay, our next application is 19 Thornley Crescent. It's for lack of additions. Construct the 2-story front addition, a new front porch, and a 2nd-story addition above the existing dwelling with 3 variances. It's existing elevations, and we have, I don't believe we have anything. We have, previous decision on this property from April 2002. Oh, sorry, existing elevation. Yeah, the previous decision on this property from April 2002. The speaker on this is Craig Reitz, the agent. Welcome, Mr. Reitz.
Thank you very much. Yes, Craig Reitz at CAR Design Studio, agent for the owners. Thank you all for your time this morning. The proposed scope, as you alluded to at 19 Thornley, is to reconstruct the existing second story from the current 1.5 story massing to a full height second story, which also incorporates a small front addition, a new front porch, and a side entrance. We didn't obtain any letters from the neighbors, but the owners have spoken with both adjacent neighbors at number 17 and number 21, with whom they have friendly relationships with, and neither of these neighbors had any objection to the variances proposed. And we understand that there are no letters of objection on file.
Nothing on this, no comments from city staff or your neighbors. Members, any questions for Mr. Reitz, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion?
Danny Bellissimo is ready to weigh in with a motion. If there's no further questions. I find, given the location of this site where it's at the crescent, that the impact is very minimal on the neighbors, and move for approval, I believe. There are no conditions, or are there? Sorry. No conditions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Taylor, second that. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next application is item number 19, 18 Harleton Crescent. It's an application. First of all, we have a revised notice. It's to construct a 2-story front addition, a 3rd floor addition. And the purpose of creating a secondary street has been eliminated. There also have been 4 other variances and eliminated. So we now have 7, and revisions to several others is shown on the revised plan. Perhaps we can get that on the board. Planning has provided us a report for information. We do have the revised tree site plan, a revised tree declaration, the revised plans and photos. Forestry is asking for a deferral, and we do have a support petition and a letter of concern from 501 Silverthorne. They're opposed to variance 10 in its current form. That's not one of the ones that have changed. And in the additional materials, we have a letter of opposition from 501 Silverthorne, a lengthy footnoted letter. And we have registered to speak only one speaker, and Nelson Espinola, the agent for the applicant. Welcome, Mr. Espinola. Sorry about that long introduction, but there was a lot of things going on, and it's just the urban forestry request for a deferral and the condition number 4. Perhaps you can enlighten us about that.
Yes, very good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. The comments from forestry were based actually on wrong uploaded information. The revised tree site plan clearly indicates that the trees are well within the tree protection zone, and they will not be affected by the construction. But we'll be happy to submit an application for a permit to injury the city-owned tree if requested.
Okay, can you go through, you see you've eliminated quite a number of other variances here?
Yes, we did.
We do have a letter of, we don't have anyone registered to speak other than yourself. You have a letter of opposition. So committee members, would you like a presentation on this, or just would like to perhaps ask some questions of the applicant? Does anyone request a formal presentation? Please let me know. Okay, and if not, does someone have any questions for the agent, Mr. Espinola, on this revised plan and on the issues of the variances he's removed and the ones that remain? Okay, and if not, is someone ready to weigh in with a motion? And I guess lastly, that's, well, given we've heard from the agent, there is still that deferral request from urban forestry on the table. Mr. Taylor?
Sorry, may I ask a question, delayed reaction to your question? Is it possible to ask a question before I make a motion?
Absolutely.
Great. For the applicant, there's a lot of red in here. Do the drawings reflect these recommendation changes that you're sort of the 6, 7, 8, and 11, and part of 9? So you're saying the drawings reflect all these?
Yes, the revised drawings reflect the elimination of the 4 variances. Variance number 6, 7, 8, and 11.
And changing to part of number 9, correct?
That's
Yes.
correct.
Okay. So if there are no further questions, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
I'd like to move for approval of the variances. I find that they're minor in nature and approve of the revised agenda page, item number 19. And the condition of forestry, so the applicant said he's okay with that condition, correct?
Yes, I am, yes.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll put that condition in.
Seconder for that. Ms. Alderson, thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Espinola.
Thank you.
Okay, and we're gonna now move on to our last item of the morning. It's not a straightforward one. It's a contested application. 59 Lake Promenade. It's for construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage. And we have a revised highlighted almost on every application, which is a good thing, showing movement. So we do have a revised notice sheet showing that the length and the depth have been reduced from 21.1 to 19.2 meters respectively. And variances 8, 9, 10 have been eliminated. So there were 11, there are now 8. 2 of those have been revised. Urban Forestry is requesting conditions 2 and 5, so a refusal. We have revised plans. We have a cover letter regarding the revisions, the Long Branch checklist. Planning has provided us with 3 conditions of approval in the event of acceptance. TRCA has no objection. We have a forestry memo, obviously. We have support from the next door neighbor at 57. We have 3 letters of opposition from 119. There are actually 2 letters from that house. I think it's the same letter twice, and from the Long Branch Neighborhood Association. In the additional materials, we received an additional letter of support from 93 and concerns from 63. And registered to speak is, first of all, the agent, Kelly Lem, acting for the applicant, and as well as the neighbors at 93 and 59 Lake Promenade, who have both written in, or no, sorry, at least 93 is written in, and as well as Andy Scholes from the Long Branch Association. So we may as well get started.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we don't have the neighbor at 93. They don't seem to be on the line and they didn't leave a telephone number. But for the record, they will receive a copy of the notice of decision once it's emailed out. So I believe it's just the applicant and
I think
Andy. And sorry, there was another additional speaker.
Well, Victor, it says Victor So, but it says he's at 59, which is the subject property. So is Victor So on the line, and what's his address? It's not 59 unless he's the co-owner, which he doesn't appear to be.
Hi, Victor.
Perhaps find his address.
Victor?
Okay, perhaps when we get to him, he can tell us his address then. Let's start with Kelly Lamb.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Kelly Lem. I'm at 201 Wicksteed, Toronto, Ontario. I'd like to begin by explaining the variances, and starting with the first one, we're seeking a variance of 93 times the area of the lot. That has been reduced from 99%. We believe that this is well in keeping with the development of the area. And there are homes that have recently been approved. That would be number 93 Lake Promenade at 118% and 139 Lake Promenade at 122%. For variance number 2, the setback, we're proposing a setback on the east side of 1.07 meters and on the west side 0.61 meters. On the east side, we believe that the proposal of 1.7 meter setback maintains a good distance as a primary access to the rear yard for both access and future maintenance for equipment. On the west side, the proposal of 0.61 meter setback is only a 1-story high proportion at a length of 6.9 meters in length, and only occurs to widen the additional width for the garage. The remaining wall of 12.06 meter in length is set back at 0.91 meters, which provides also good maintenance for the future. Other homes that have been set back is 93 Promenade at 0.6 meters. For the variance number 3 and 4, they were measured and calculated the same way. So I'm speaking with respect with both these variants at the same time. The building length and the depth has been reduced to 19.02 meters, and we feel that the proposed length of 19.2 meters is not entirely a two-story structure. A total of 2.13 meters is one story, and the remaining 16.89 meters is actually 2 stories. There is no building length variance on the east side, and this only occurs on the west side. And again, projects such as 93 Lake Promenade was approved at 20.63 meters, and 627th Street was approved at 21.83 meters. If we move to variance number 5, we're proposing a height of 9.93 meters. And we understand that the area is primarily a 2-story construction, accompanied with 1-story mix of homes. However, we understand the 3-story with dormers would be an issue, and we have removed those dormers to ensure that the house from the street reflects a 2-story home. For variance number 6, we are proposing. That was I'm sorry. I'm going to for variance number 7 here, because we do have 3 stories, and we understand that there's only permitted 1 platform. In this case, we do have 3 stories, and so in this case, we are proposing to have 2 platforms, one on the 2nd floor, which complies, and one on the 3rd floor. The remaining 8, 9, and 10 variances have been removed, and the final variance number 11 is regards to the TRCA, and TRCA has no objections in regards to our proposal. In closing, I'd like to note that before the construction of the new house, the shoreline will be paired with extensive erosion control. Both adjacent neighbors have expressed interest to construct the same erosion control. We have read staff report, and we will implement bird-friendly treatment on the south elevation, and all new fixtures will be dark sky compliant. Also, we have read the urban planning forestry, and they had 2 recommendations. Number 10, as I mentioned earlier, has been removed, and their second concern is the removal of the tree number 5. And I'd like to point out that the location of tree number 5 on the west side is right on the border of the property line. And being midway, it would be impossible to avoid, even if we complied with the setback. We wish to remove this tree, and we will replace it as per urban planning. The owners have spoken to the neighbors and their immediate neighbors and have received approvals on both sides, as well as from number 1 and number 93 Lake Promenade. We feel that our revised design is in keeping with the neighborhood and recent developments within the area. We believe that it satisfies the 4 tests, and it will be appropriate for the area and the community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any questions from Mr. Lem?
Danny Bellismo has a quick question. I'm looking at the revised plans. You said you submitted revised plans. I'm looking at A6. You said you removed the 3 dormers?
Yes, in the front, there is a drawing. If there should be in your file that the 3 dormers have been removed. And
The drawing I'm looking at is the revised set A6, and the dormers are included, but your new revised calculations are based on a revised drawing that does not have those 3 dormers in it, right?
That's correct, sir.
Fine, it's a bit confusing for me. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just to clarify, I thought I had heard variance 1 for FSI has been revised to 0.93. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And is that from the removal of the dormers?
No, sir. That was the reduction of the building length. The original building length was 21 meters. And we had reduced the building length back down to 19, and that has reduced our FSI.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Oh, hold on. We have the revision. Oh, was this the one we had 2 sets of revisions or no? There's only the one set of revisions, but how come we don't have the showing, we have still showing 0.999?
I think it was missed by our office. If you look at the revised waiver dated March 2nd, it does indicate it at 0.93 with a corresponding gross floor area of 466.8.
Okay, so that's what's before us right now.
Yes.
But 4.66.8, that's at 0.93 because that's in the notice at 0.99. So it was just a typo, and they didn't make it 0.93. It should have been highlighted, and the 466.8 square meters is a reduction, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
I'm not sure how, because the original notice went out at 466.8. So I'd like the applicant to confirm what it should be in square meters. Because that's a significant reduction.
Yes, I would have to recalculate that, but I would reiterate that
You have to tell us that now.
Okay.
Yeah, the committee has to know if they're approving or refusing. They have to know what they're, it's got to be. So right now we're being told that 466.8 on the revised notice is equal to 0.93. So the actual square meters is correct, but the 0.99 to the 93, that was just the one omission. Any further questions? Does anyone have any questions? I guess for Mr. Lem, further questions other than Mrs. Bellisimo's before we move on to hear from the neighbors, and perhaps we found out what address Mr. So is from.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair.
53.
53. Okay.
We also do have Sahil Jaggi on the line.
Okay, he's from 93. And that's the lot we heard about on the application
Correct.
This morning on 91. That's the new construction one. So
Correct.
okay, we do now have 2 speakers.
Yeah. My apologies for missing it. With the new.
Okay, not a problem.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's hear from, I guess, first on the list is Mr. Jaggi from 93 Lake Promenade.
Committee members, I'm here speaking on behalf of, in support of 59 Lake Promenade today. I believe the application has a lot of merit, and I think the design, they've kept a lot of the factors in mind when it comes to like the neighborhood character guidelines and whatnot. And also a big point here is that, and I've heard this before from the other neighbors for 91 Lake Promenade, and also I guess the Long Branch Neighborhood Association. To me, that's a little bit of a surprise, because for an association that has been doing so much work here, showing up here twice a week, opposing a lot of the homes, and claims to be representing the neighborhood, how do they miss the fact that the houses that are on the lake, the FSI is thrown off by the hazard assessment? So it is important to consider what the FSI would be if the shoreline hazard limit was removed, and what is it truly based on the lot coverage. And I think that's a very important point to consider. In my personal application, it was 0.47. So if you look at the zero for the lot coverage. Also, I think the revisions that they made and the effort that the owner and the applicant for 59 Lake Promenade have made to go and speak to the neighbors. They came to my doorstep. They showed me the plans similar to when I was doing, and I know what it takes to go through this process of knocking the doors. And a lot of people don't understand it's a very eclectic street. There's a lot of good mix of modern and traditional homes, and this home has incorporated a lot of the traditional aspects with keeping the insides and the back of the home very modern. So they've really made a lot of effort in terms of knocking the doors and explaining to people and answering questions such as why is the FSI so high, and taking the time to explain that it's thrown off by the shoreline hazard limit. The second point is it is important as a a resident of Lake Promenade, for me to know that people are putting the effort to protect the shoreline, working with the TRCA. I did the same thing. We're spending close to $150,000, $200,000 to build a wall that protects the shoreline. And I believe Mr. Ender is doing the same thing in his house, is to, going through the TRCA, rebuilding that wall, protecting the shoreline, and then coming back and building the house. So we are all abiding by those rules, and I feel like the effort should be rewarded in terms of, the fact that the both neighbors on the adjoining sides are on board with this design. So I really support this project, and I think it really goes with the existing character and also the moving forward, the new generation character, where new families are moving in, bigger families are moving in, and this small house on a big lot deserves to have a good home that fits the guidelines. So I'm in support of this project.
Okay, thank you, Mr. So. Any questions for Mr. So before we move on to the next speaker? The next speaker is the neighbor at 53, and we'll hear if, just in terms of municipal numbering, where he is in relation. It's 2 doors away from 59, or is it next door? So the neighbor is, oh, sorry, that was now we're speaking to Mr. So. The last neighbor was Mr. Jaggi. I just referred to him as Mr. So, but anyway, my apologies. Okay, so now we're going to hear from the neighbor at 59, Mr. So. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Hi. Can you hear me?
Very clear.
Great. Sorry, a correction there. I'm at 53. That's 2 doors down.
Okay, I just didn't know if there was a 57 or a 55. So you are two doors away?
Yes, I am. And sorry for the tardiness. I didn't realize this meeting would be this long. Actually, I don't have much to say here. I'm just listening in, and we don't have any comment to make.
Okay, thank you. So I assume then that we can now go on to we don't need any questions for you. We can go on to Mr. Choles for his presentation.
Good afternoon, almost afternoon anyway. My name's Andy Choles. I live at 12 Jasmine Avenue, about a block north of this property. Board member of the LBNA. I'm here to speak in opposition to the planned build at 59 Lake Promenade. This new home takes what is already a crowded property in its pleasant state and plans to build an even larger home. The FSI of 0.99 is almost triple what the property is zoned under bylaws. That was revised to 0.93, but the area of the home remains at 466.8 meters square. I'm not sure if that's a clerical oversight. You've already addressed that, but I'm not sure if it's quite correct. The applicant's reference to 2 other overbuilds, including number 93 on Lake Prom, are houses that the LBNA has opposed as much as we could. This is what we refer to when we talk about homes setting a precedent, where a large home is built and then other applicants come along and keep referring to that over and over again. But to be fair, the FSI for shoreline property does need to be addressed. The numbers are fluctuating greatly when these applications come up, so I think that should be addressed. The side yard setbacks are reduced to 1.07 meters from the east lot and 0.61 from the west lot. Forestry states that this variance should be denied because it will result in the removal of a healthy bylaw protected tree. The applicant, when filling in the long branch character guidelines, states that the plan is to remove 5 trees from the site and includes and discounts most of them as unhealthy, although there doesn't seem to be an arborist report contained in the file. The tree identified This tree identified by forestry must be the single tree that the applicant refers to as viable. He rationalizes his choice trying to explain that the net gain in the number of trees planted, although not on this site, the site will have only 3 trees planted on it. A very healthy 50 centimeter at breast height Norway maple will be sacrificed so this house can become longer. Of course, these new sapling trees will not be quite the same as a 50 centimeter Norway maple. It will take many years for these new trees to be able to contribute to the tree canopy that is under threat in Toronto and especially Long Branch, and that's if these trees are planted in Long Branch. Its increase in length of the house is also excessive at 19.02 meters, reduced from 21 meters, but still exceeding the 17 meter limit. The height of the building is also excessive, measuring almost half a meter over a height limit. There's mention in the planning report of other improvements that are on the plan stated March the 2nd, 2022. The plans available on file for this for this home do not include these improvements. The dormers on the front of the house were to be removed. They're still there. The second floor deck and the third floor terrace is also present. The size of the third floor terrace looks in the drawing to be much larger than 4 meters squared. In a previous version, the terrace measured 19.1 meters squared. Green space in the front yard is also to be improved, more landscaping and soft landscaping. In the unfortunate case that this house does receive approval, the home would have to be built substantially and according with these plans, I think is the wording usually used in motions. Hopefully this committee has access to those revised plans that include the reductions mentioned in the planning report. I'm only dealing with the information that was available to me. We would request this application be refused. It is too large for the property and will result in the destruction of a magnificent Norway maple. Should this house be built, it will continue the undesirable trend of oversized homes being built along Lake Promenade. I've mentioned before, this street is a jewel of Long Branch. The waterfront bike trail runs along here, the trail that is part of the Cross Canada Great Trail. Views from the lake from the public realm must be preserved and not blocked by oversized houses crowded onto lots with trees being removed. I would request this application be refused. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scholes. Mr. Scholes, I'm going to hear back from the applicant whether these plans, March 2nd, we have revised plans reflect the changes that are highlighted in the planning report of how he's improved his position. And as you mentioned, planning at this point sometimes is simpatico with your association. In this case, they point out that if not for the top of bank issue and the TRCA issues, that it would be more like 0.51 rather than 3. So we'll see if he has those plans, because obviously you're right. If they're going to have to build in substantially in accordance with those, other than the bird friendly and dark sky compliant lighting conditions that community planning is asking for, we'll have to have those plans. So I'm going to have to ask him to see if he has those. Okay. So does anyone else have any questions for Mr. Scholes before we go back to the agent to respond to the concerns? I guess only those concerns, because the other two speakers didn't really reflect and have any concerns. So no questions for Mr. Scholes. Okay, Mr. Lem, we'll back to you then. Please confirm, do we have an accurate set of drawings based on the changes you made as reflected in the planning report?
They were submitted in your in the file. They also show the removal of the dormers. All the drawings have been indicated by bubbles, and they have been sent to the committee, and the dormers will be removed. In respect to the 93%, the percentage in square footage should be read as 440.45 square meters, 93%. And my apologies, that was a typo.
Okay, staff, do you have that?
Sorry, could he repeat that?
Yes, the 93% represents 440.45 square meters.
Thank you.
And that is on the site plan dated March the 2nd. That's also in the file. And that's been bubbled and highlighted.
And sir, so I assume you're okay with the recommended planning conditions?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and as well as urban forestry condition number 2. Okay, so can you please, I guess, respond to the concerns of Mr. Scholes? There's no need to deal with 50 the neighbors, 53 or 93, but you got to please respond to Mr. Scholes' concerns.
Yes, we in response to Mr. Scholes, we have made significant design changes with staff, and we have removed 3 variants in doing so, as well as reduced the variances that we were seeking. The new variances that we're seeking are very minor in nature, and more importantly, it reflects the current development on this street as well as the surrounding community. The owners have worked closely and very hard with the arborists and TRCA to ensure that the footprint and the design had minimal impact on existing trees and to stop further future erosion. I want to point out specifically in regards to the Norway tree that's being removed, there are 2 trees that we had obstacles in dealing with. And one of the trees in question right now for removal is tree number 5, and its location, even if we were to comply with a setback, There's no way we could ever avoid this tree. It is located at midway where the house is being proposed. And this is the only way we could develop this project with the removal of this tree. On the opposite side, on the east side, you'll notice that there's even a larger Norway maple tree. This particular tree is 73 centimeters in diameter, and we had avoided this tree and make sure that this was not going to be a tree that we were to take down, and we made every effort to work around the existing trees. We feel that what we have done has been more in keeping with the development of the area, and we feel that the massing with respect to height, with length, and with FSI, all are minor in nature, and we believe that it does satisfy the 4 tests. I also want to lastly point out that the trees that are being removed are, for the most part, in terrible shape, as you would see in the report, in the arborist report. There is an existing tree that's already being removed, which many have the emerald ash borer being infected. And so many of the trees that are being removed are in poor condition and health. And we obviously will be replacing trees as required by urban forestry.
Members, any follow-up questions for the agent or anything, or Mr. Choles?
This would like to ask a question of the agent, and I would like to ask with staff, can you put on a revised plan drawing A6, and then I'll ask you for the revised plan site plan, because I'm still confused of what the applicant is saying. Because planning is saying there's a revised plan dated March 2nd, and I want the applicant to let me know where it says March 2nd. A6 says December 1st. Is there a March 2nd note on that?
It's the date that they were submitted to us.
Yeah, usually date stamped when received by the committee.
Okay, so that goes to the site plan, and that's A1, same thing. So even though it's dated December 1st, it's actually March 2nd. I just wanted clarification of staff on that one.
Yes.
We're looking at the one called revised plans, and even though it's dated December 1st, 2021, it's A1. That's the site plan that planning is asking us to tie the recommendation.
So what, if you choose to impose that as a condition, maybe we can change that wording to the site plan and elevation drawings received March 2nd.
Yes, that would help me because I don't see March 2nd dated anywhere here, so I'm confused. Thank you for clarifying that, staff.
Okay, good catch, because now we can clarify there won't be a problem in the future in the event that there's an approval and it's tied to that. Okay, any other questions for any of the speakers? Or some ready to weigh in?
Mr. Chair, I have a question of staff. We have a conflict with respect to urban forestry comments. We have their consolidated memo, which calls for refusal firstly, but gives us an option to impose condition 2. And then we also have a memo dated February 24th that recommends condition 1. Should we just focus on the consolidated memo?
I would suggest using the specific one to the file. So they're asking for Article 3 and Article 2. So city tree and private tree. The first
I missed that. In their February 24th memo on file, they talked about 1 and 2, did they?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, a private tree and a public, the city tree.
Okay. Well, if there are no questions, I'm prepared to move on this.
Okay.
I think, Mr. Choles was asking for clarity on how we deal with situations that involve TRCA regulation limits. And I think our planning staff has been quite consistent on their take on this. They do a calculation based on total land area and comment on the appropriateness of the building in that respect. And in this case, they've said the proposal, in their view, would be quite in keeping with the neighborhood. So I'm satisfied that the proposal meets the 4 tests. And I move approval subject to the community planning conditions and urban forestry conditions 1 and 2. Oh, and sorry, my motion pertains to the revised application, which is further revised in variance 1, the second sentence. The floor space index is 0.93 times the area of the lot, which would be 440.45 meters squared.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. I think you got everything there. Do we have a seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion? Is there no seconder for the motion? Okay, if there's no seconder for the motion fails. I see all of you. Then can I have a new motion? Mr. Palmer.
I'm going to move for refusal. I just think that it's an overbuild for the property. You've got a 50-foot lot here, and they're asking to reduce the side yard setbacks. I don't understand that. I really think it's an overbuild for the property. It doesn't preclude them from coming back with a different proposal that's more in keeping with the zoning bylaw. So it's not minor, it's not desirable, and it doesn't meet the 4 tests. So I move for refusal.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Ms. Alderson, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 3-2. The application is refused, with Clark and Taylor dissenting. And that brings us to the end of the morning agenda. I think we made up some time in the back stretch. Or back 9, whatever you want to call it. So, Madam Secretary Treasurer, it's now 1:11. Do you want to return to 1:15 or to give staff more time, 1:30?
Well, 2, not 1.
Oh, sorry. Freudian slip there. Right.
Maybe 2:30 so that they have a bit of time with the technical issues.
2:15 to 2:30. I figure you'd want to round it off. So we'll be back here, I guess, at 2:30 to do the afternoon agenda.
Thank you.
Okay.
See you later.
Yep. Stop video. We're gonna plug it in.